The meeting of the Connecticut Board of Education is now called to order. I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
All in favor? I need a motion and a second to move into an executive session.
Second.
Motion with Board of Education move into executive session in accordance with the Open Meetings Law, Section 105F, employment history matters leading to the discipline removal of particular persons confidential and exempt under the meeting laws to seek the advice of the board's attorney. Motion? Second. Second. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Okay, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second. All in favor? Okay, Miss Christina, would you mind doing roll call?
Mrs. Odolis,
Present?
Mrs. Kennedy,
Present.
Mrs. Panico,
Present.
Mr. Watershaw,
Present.
Dr. Adams,
Present.
Mr. Amici,
Present.
Mrs. Donnelly,
Present.
Mrs. Manzi,
Present.
Mr. Middleton,
Present.
Ms. Hutchinson.
Present.
Now, was there any changes to the meeting?
I know Mr. Costa would like to go first. So we have the opening of school tomorrow. I don't know if you know that.
We don't need to change it to do that.
You don't need to
No,
do
that's
that?
just presentation part.
Okay. So, I need a motion and a second to accept the minutes of August 21st, 2018 business meeting. Second. All in favor?
No.
Mark Eileen is not in favor of accepting the minutes. Okay, we're moving on to discussion items. So we're taking, we're going to allow Mr. Costa to go first.
I think we should be nice to.
Okay, Mr. Costa, you have the floor.
Accompanied by somebody.
Covered by Ms. Nancy.
I think we better raise that up.
Good sale of the chair.
You understand?
That's all. I appreciate that. We're here to present and discuss, discuss our formal presentation that we did when we began the summer regarding the restorative academic program. And we were in executive session, as a lot of questions, and I believe for those who were in the audience, for our first presentation, there may be some questions that we addressed.
Is he doing the presentation again?
No,
Do you want me to re-ask my questions?
just once if you want to highlight.
Oh, back to my notes. You didn't tell me that part. I would have made you go last. You want to just give us a day in the life? You sent us the periods.
What a typical day in the restorative academic program
Yes,
looks like.
actually.
I could. I actually prefer Ms. Hanson.
Okay.
Those people that regarding the restorative academic program.
Not badly.
Mr.
Not
Costa,
that-
do you want to give any of the packets out to members that would be interested in the audience?
So you actually have mine if you want.
I have quite a few though. They're big. So if you wanted something to just look through, it's not enough for everybody, but. What's the,
This is just the paper, this is the presentation of the program.
Yeah,
I couldn't hear you.
I'm gonna explain it kind of.
Thank you.
I'll ask my first question. Ken, I'll ask the first question while you're hearing those out. So, Mr. Hanson, earlier I asked Mr. Costa if children were still being suspended to OSS, and he said that for certain infractions they were.
There's certainly
So can you explain those?
All right. The program is being put in place to replace our ISS room, our in-school suspension room. which we feel just isn't productive. It's not really worthwhile for kids. We're not getting anything out of it. So I'll explain the program and then the day of, and then I'll come back to that question. So I think it'll be helpful if you have a better idea. So basically what's going to happen is, it was in lieu of a student being suspended, all right, for an offense that normally would be, let's say, 1 to 5 days or 3, a couple of days of ISS for, I want to say minor infractions, but because any suspension would be a semi-major infraction. But then there are major infractions where kids would get suspended for 5 days or more. So anything 5 days or less, instead of being placed in the in-school suspension room where they basically just sit there and they would get work provided by their teachers with no instruction. It's a complete loss of instruction. There's no reflection piece. I mean, in the past, there's been things where we do, we'll provide counseling if necessary, especially with repeat offenders. But with this program, we're going to set up a day where a typical day at the high school is 9 periods. So 5 of the periods would be covered by a teacher, and we're looking to use a special education teacher, just not because of the special education program, but in order to meet all the needs of all our students, we would need to have a special education teacher. This way, if there was a student that had special education needs, IEP or anything with their IEP or 504, that teacher could meet those needs. So with those 5 periods, so 5 out of the 9 periods, this teacher would be in there. 2 of the periods would be based on the philosophy of restorative justice, which is basically, and restorative justice is kind of a wide-scoping thing. It's a philosophy where you basically work on mending relationships and correcting behavior by addressing behavior, but a large piece of it is reflective practice. So we want to use the reflective practice part of restorative justice during 2 of those periods to work on the kid's behavior. What actually did the kid do to get in there, the student do to get in there, and what can we do to, first of all, have them reflect on their behavior, why they're there, and make better choices, and also try to correct that behavior. So that would be 2 of the 9 periods. The remaining 3 periods would be, that special education teacher will have a concentration. We're looking at either social studies or ELA. So that period would replace that student's instruction in social studies or ELA. So they're getting that instruction. And then the 2 other periods would be academic support. That academic support could serve as a resource time for a student that had it in their 504 or their IEP. It could also be specials. It could be not one of the major, one of the major subjects, but like maybe one of the secondary subjects, one of the minor subjects or electives that they're taking. So we'll provide 2 more periods of academic support from that teacher. The 6th period would be the duty, would be their lunch. Every student gets a lunch, so that would be their lunch. And then they have 3 remaining periods. The 3 remaining periods would be covered by academic-specific teachers, math, science, and then the other period would either be ELA or social studies, whatever the teacher didn't have. So if, let's say the main teacher was a social studies teacher, we would have an ELA teacher covered. So now you're hitting every single major. You're maintaining instruction. All right, and now the kids are forced to do work. So it's not, a timeout where the kids are kind of sitting there and they just sit there all day and don't have to do anything. Sometimes that's not, sometimes kids, I don't want to say enjoy that, but that's not really a deterrent for their behavior. We're making them reflect on their behavior. We're making them, think about what they did. If in certain cases we can use it as a school, we talked about using it for school service, like a community service within the school during a period where they have to do some work in the school, and they're also, all their academics are being maintained. So when they're in there, they're still being educated. There are a lot of benefits to that. It maintains all their programs for anything like that. So the kids, this doesn't going to count as a change of placement because the kids are being educated. Now, another aspect of it, there are infractions that would be above this, where kids are going to warrant an OSS, fighting, drugs, weapons, things like that. So if a student has a long-term, something that would warrant a long-term suspension, we will still have OSS, but it will greatly reduce, our suspensions, ISS suspensions and minor OSS, out-of-school suspensions. One of the other things we use the room for is when a student goes out on a long-term suspension, let's say they go out for 4 or 5 weeks for a major infraction, we have to provide transitional support when that student returns to the building. So the final week of the suspension, they would be brought back to the school and placed in this room in the restorative academic program where we could provide them with those services and that transition back into the building, and also start getting them put up and back on track where they should be academically. We can kind of gauge how much instruction, where they were when they were on OSS, and get them back and transition them back into the school. we're building a counseling piece using guidance counselors, psychologists, and that we have talked to one.
We don't want to have no problem.
Gong show.
All right. So the last thing would be, no, let's not but would be, would be the counseling component, where we can refer counseling. We have behavioral specialists, we can refer psychologists, social workers, and guidance counselors. So they're going to have a piece in this. We're working with the new director of guidance to work with our guidance counselors so that they can help be a counseling piece within this. Questions?
So, I always like to talk about the money. All right, so $81,000 currently right now, but it's not completely servicing the children like we're going to be doing with this program. Now, the cost of the program is going to be $152. Great. Well, it's for the teacher, the main teacher, and the .2s. Are you eventually, depending on the attendance of this program, going to look for, say, a part-time social worker, part-time IFS worker?
We have to, I mean, right now, with the counseling piece we have now, I think we could meet the needs with what we have now, especially if you, not just social workers we could also use guidance. I think that's a big piece.
Okay, so now I understood we're going to be paying the teachers .2. Now, is that a set .2? So say, for example, they're not working 2 days out of that week. Are they still guaranteed the .2 at the end of the year, or do you take that .2 and use it for other responsibilities?
We would assign.
They will do other responsibilities. They still get their .2 stipend, but we will have them do other things. Whether it be class coverage.
Okay, so that's.
They're gonna be working.
And I would say the same thing with the teacher that's in there for 5 periods. They can use for other things, assignments, and they can cover classes.
Yeah, we addressed that piece, but I wasn't sure about this .2. It's just, prorated when they come into the class with the standing .2, and then we utilize them for that. That's really good.
I was saying, just, we're gonna utilize them as we see.
And we also talked about earlier, the number of children in the room can be anywhere from 1 to 10 and sometimes 0, which goes to what Myla was saying, that if there is 0 kids in the room, they'll be assigned elsewhere.
And the room is going to be, I think, like, it's tough to compare to, if you look back at last year, years past, how many kids on average were in ISS. It's going to be greater than that because we're going to use it in lieu of some of the OSS. So it's going to be used more. So some of the kids that might have been on OSS won't be on OSS anymore. They're going to be in.
I think it's great. This way we don't have kids playing Xbox or on social media. It's going to be a little more painful to do. So maybe this will be a deterrent in some respects.
The kids are going to do more work in that room than they probably would in a normal academic day because they're going to have what they're going to be every single period.
They're not going to want to.
Exactly. They're not going to want to.
That's the goal.
Back in the day, we used to pick up.
Does anyone from the audience have any questions?
Is it going to be a set staff?
It's going to be, it's going to be set staff because we're going to have, so we'll have the one teacher that's in there full time, and then there'll be 3 teachers assigned to the one teacher.
Okay, so one is
Ms.
sort of a
Kelly, could you speak a little louder,
all right,
please?
sort of a question slash statement. So we're providing instruction for providers for poor behavior, which, I mean, we have to determine some behavior. Your child is out sick, it's an act of Congress to get work for your child. So can we maybe marry those 2 together so that if your child's sick, you can also get the work done and not that we're just provided the child is not behaving. And it's not sense. That's two separate issues, but it kind of rubs me a little bit. That, like, you need to do the right thing, now you get an extra instruction, and then.
I'm probably a lot.
And then, that's okay, and then if you're trying to be proactive and keep them on your games, you have to literally like badger everybody who will listen to you to get your child. So that's a concern I have. We should provide for all children, so that would be the one thing with that. The other thing is that the alternative learning center, so ALC isn't always behavioral, it could just be a child who maybe isn't able to function within the confines of the current educational standards, and sometimes that's is a result of that ends up there. And so we have that students are in suspension at ALC, but are they suspended or are they in a school program, that's kind of contradictory.
There's actually, I'm sorry, there's two things that run concurrently at the night school. There's the ALC, which is the Alternative Learning Center,
Which is for suspense.
which is for suspended students, and then there's the night school for students that can't function in the day setting. So they run concurrently, but it's really two programs.
And some people use that synonymously when it's not. It has two distinct programs.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up, I appreciate it. Okay, the other thing, as far as the school program, are parents notified, they're required to have a meeting with the school if their child is going to be in this restorative justice program? What if a parent says, you know what, I don't want my child doing that? Then, like, how does this work? When a child and a parent, or one or the other, will both say, no, thank you.
Well, you know, it's no different than right now with in-school suspension. If you say that you don't want to school suspension, we tell you, you should be serving a school suspension, and, well, I'm not gonna bring it to school, then it's a whole nother discussion.
Right,
Because you're not doing them any service.
right.
You know, as a parent, we would like to see the parents be more supportive of our decision, and,
So, but
sorry,
if a child,
you need, but not
but if
gonna
a
be
child
nice,
is in this
but
program, is the parent required to come and have a meeting at the
Yes.
school conversation?
we always have a conversation. Suspension.
Okay, and then if
Regardless of what the infraction.
And then if a child's in the program and says, you know what, I'm not doing it, like I look at the lesson program and you know, it's interesting, it's happening, you know, I'm thinking as a teenager who is in, I don't think big amount of trouble. But if he's like, I'm not doing it, too bad, so sad, I'm just gonna sit here like, you know, a regular day and that's fine. So what happens, do you add on to this program? Or is there like another step up? Is that considered like another, is that considered when you're gonna get suspended out of school? If you don't want, like, what happens then?
You know,
Because you can't force it.
you can't force a child, you know, 100%. However, you force a child to stay through extended detention is something we're discussing. So if Nico decides, I want to go part, some of the options that we're kind of kicking around right now, because it is a brand new program, we're trying to figure out the best way to handle those situations. You know, we talked about extended detention. So if Nico's in there for 9 periods, refusing to assign you, maybe do an additional 2 hours after school to finish your assignment.
But if a parent says, no, you're not saying yes, I need my child home because they have a
And then the next day, or the next day. Eventually, what's going to happen is you need a child home with a services.
Right.
You know, one or two things in that. And then at the destination point, then we never want to do that. Hopefully, we come to a resolution prior to that. I'll be honest with you, those scenarios, I feel from.
Right, I'm just looking into, I know they're extreme, but I'm just saying with every new program, you're going to have pushback from probably all angles, so I'm just trying to think of.
We anticipate, and we've discussed it as a team,
I mean, but
what's
you
gonna
know,
happen. There's gonna be
everything
students,
that
there's gonna be students that are gonna say, I'm not doing this. And there's gonna be there's not really choice, but then you're gonna see it until you get it done. You know, and then there's a level of insubordination which would require further. There's a contract that will go along with it too. You know, that kind of like says this is what this is all about, and what the parents about.
Does anybody else have any questions?
The REP teacher, my even name is Joker. It seems to be the winning of this program is this reduction in school classes. That's a little new for everyone. That concept we see on both the lines is like how to educate, that's my name. Has that REP teacher received any sort of training, et cetera, in that element of, I'm pretty sure there's not someone basically Googling, some good collection of assignments, and then I can't come out. But what's the element of being able to interpret that, work with, to be able to get the most out of that? Because that's what the entire program is, right? Is the ability to have that person make that term. Just giving a worksheet, nothing that's going to interpret it, not work with them, they will say.
Absolutely right. We've conducted interviews on people who we think are highly qualified based on their current assignments and their experience. We're trying to select the best person for the program to be the full-time teacher. That person would have to have working knowledge of restorative circles. Restorative circles is not a new concept. Restorative circles has been around forever in psychology and social work.
But not education.
But not education as a whole. Although it is coming into education. The restorative circle program concept is more like group counseling, if you would, to reflect in practice. We're taking that concept and bringing it to classroom. So the people who we've interviewed several weeks ago all have a working background knowledge of either restorative justice or restorative circles. You know, and that knowledge is one of the things that we consider on who we want to move forward. So yes, that definitely was a consideration.
Will there be
And
opportunity for professional development for the person going forward? I didn't say anything else, but there will be continuous development of that skill.
as well as writing curriculum.
All right, thank you.
I just want to also
what I said, and I'm not sure if I heard it right, they delegate behavior specialist, social worker, and on board with this as well, right? So,
There will be a contingent, we also have a behavioral specialist who's also aware of the program, a psychologist is aware of the program, a social worker is aware of the program, a guidance counselor is aware of the program. So we do have additional support.
So all the normal resources that we have within the building can be used there for the students within the program.
Any districts on Long Island that have been successful with this, more successful with this program, or we about practically one of the first pilot?
We got one of the first to take to this level. Mr. Hanson visited ISAP High School, which is actually one of the pioneers in this. The same with Portland, Oswald. They use something similar to the program, but not to the degree that we want to take. This is more surface level, more like they're actually looking to copy our model at this point.
So, Mr. Costa, this is not a new concept to NetWalk. I understand some years ago, something very close to this model. Do you happen to know why that model failed, and why this one would be more successful?
I'm not sure the program is.
It was very similar to this.
From what I heard, there was a teacher, they had a teacher that was in charge of it. But I think it was more of, might have been a TA or I don't know. Yeah, I don't think there was a curriculum that went along with it. It was just, we really got the cover of the AI session.
Also during the day, so it wasn't, okay. I knew there was some type of model 5 years ago, I didn't know it was that.
I think that's-
So, kids are encouraged to have cell phones today in school. Then I have to think of a parent where the kid takes a picture of the test, and the other kid gets an A. And things like that. Is there anything that we do to stop that, or not do that, or be tested? So, what could be something?
That's really up to the classroom teacher and what their protocols are within their own classroom. Some teachers actually have shoe cubbies where they make their kids put their phone in the shoe cubby. There are some security issues and there's some liability for the teacher to do that. We'll do the best they can to monitor what goes on during the test. Is it going down there? Sure.
Do they text in class and things like that?
They're not supposed to, it's the teachers have to monitor it. When they caught, they handle it on the spot, but they put one on us.
Do you have a problem with that?
There are problems with it, because they're not supposed to have their phones, but, kids,
We have to bring your own device in.
well, like Mr. Costa
We've
said,
been teaching, we actually had this conversation today about appropriate use in schools. We all know they're bad stuff. I mean, every single one, people who probably has a cell phone, and at least once or twice in the next 5 minutes, they go look at it. It's the age we live in right now. So we've been actually toying the idea of how to embrace that technology. We want our teachers to use the technology in the classroom, but we want to emphasize appropriate use. What's appropriate, what's not appropriate. We handle on a disciplinary level many forms of inappropriate use. It's very unfortunate. But on the same token, we see a lot of great things that happen in the classrooms using cell phones. When those things happen, where it happens in class and sends along, it does happen. Major Kate as we think. Oh, sure.
the cell phones won't be allowed in the schools. Kids won't have their phones. It's one of the things that's not going to be
So
played.
this one, they got to turn their phone on.
We'll turn their phone when they go to school.
How would that be?
For a test?
No,
So
no,
we
no.
have a story document program.
Yeah.
So we also have several desktop,
Yeah, turn.
we also have several desktop computers set up in the room for internet use.
So on their lunch break, do they get some back and then return the phone?
That's something,
We discussed that, and we haven't fully decided that part. I wouldn't say we're in advance, but that full discussion.
one of the things we discussed is it's actually kind of currency. The kids can earn it, they do what they're supposed to be doing, they're doing what they're supposed to do all that day, during their lunch period, they get 5 minutes or 10 minutes with it.
It's not even they want to do it in their homes, they're behind some of that stuff. Any more questions? Thank you.
This is a mom of special education kids. How does this work when a child is dyslexia, iPads, or I know special kids get suspended. However, I know we'll go there with that now. Is it because we're not understanding what's happening? Is it management breakdown? What's going on with the child? But for a child, I don't know if I'm misunderstanding. Is this repeat offenders, or this is a first-time suspension you go into like this? I do.
It depends on the infraction.
So it goes like, so if you do a big climb or longer, I get that, right? So usually, I mean, my child would not sit home. I appreciate this, because I think it's silly. The child's home, it's to send them. But how does that work? Is it geared to all?
Well,
kids,
one of the
or-
reasons, that's one of the reasons
I don't know
why
if
we
you
were.
can say it
Well,
clearly.
yeah, I know what you're trying. I know
Yeah.
what you're trying to say. One of the reasons why the main teacher in there we want to have looking for a special education teacher is one of their responsibilities will be usually they'll be like we're not going to put kids in this room right away. So let's say something happens today, hopefully it'll be at least a half a day or they'll go there the next day. That gives an opportunity for the teacher to check this person's IEP, check what their accommodations are, and meet their accommodations while they're in this room. So is there anything special they need? If they need an iPad, they need any sort of special accommodations, the teacher's responsibility is to make sure that those needs are met. Yeah.
We have a plan in place to accurately track the data to see if in fact we are seeing a reduction in students. So at the end of the school year, would you be willing to have another presentation to show us that?
We've collected the data for the last 5 years on our suspensions,
Right.
and we're going to compare it to this year. We're going to collect data as we go along. There's a log sheet for every single day.
Right.
Yeah, but we're also going to. That's one of the things.
I'm just saying, like, it would be nice to see that it's working and what you found that, works better than other things. This one is basic, the first couple of years probably it's like really fine.
Yeah, we have a plan to track all of that.
The real goal is to reduce doses of PFAS.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that's easy for us to track, just by sheer number of times students are suspended, the same student. We see that in years past, we see that each year.
Are you looking feedback from students at the end of their time, if you will, to see what they felt was something that's stayed with them, or are they, I mean, look, there's option cases for even adults who are like, whatever, but overall, just to get a feel for it, feedback, what they think they can do better, or just to help.
This is the asking,
Right here, right.
Well, thank you. I think that was Thank you,
Enjoy tomorrow.
Thank you.
Mr. John Allen?
Back at the point.
So if anybody wants to treat this like a down show, pull me off the podium, I am more than okay with that.
There's that, give me that little key.
I'll give a very, very quick overview as to what we're referring to in BMS for the community's sake. But as everybody here knows, and from the meetings that took place in the past week, we've had a moisture issue that goes back many years at OBMS. This past summer, it reared its ugly head in a manner that was quite surprising and very alarming. For the first week or so that we noticed it was strictly a moisture issue, but over the course of a couple of days, it actually started rearing itself as being mold in the regions. The areas that we were most concerned about were the first floor on either side of the LGI, stairwells, a couple of hallways, as well as the cafeteria. So once we identified those areas, once we realized that we had an issue, we immediately reached out to the Board of Education. As you know, we created a special purchase order so that we could address that work immediately, as well as bring in some equipment that would allow us to dehumidify the air and start gaining control of the space. We did that immediately. That very afternoon, the company came in on Friday, they set up all the equipment, and then they came in with people, and they cleaned all of those areas that we were concerned about. At that point, we also reached out to J.C. Broderick, and we asked them to come in and give us their assessments as well. Not only in the form of air quality testing, but also professional observations and recommendations as to how we should be handling those rooms. Thankfully, we have a couple of representatives here from J.C. Broderick, a lot of years of expertise, so hopefully if there's any questions pertaining to that, they'll be able to help answer those. We also have a representative here from John Grillo. John Grillo himself is here. So as we start looking into a long-term plan, John will be very involved in that process as well. So as we were going through this, my first thinking was, how are we going to solve this? And I always kept thinking long-term. The problem with long-term is it doesn't help us right now. I was having a conversation with a union representative at the building, and started realizing that we needed to find a way of addressing the situation as we speak. We can't just sit there and go on trust and go on hope that we're doing things well. We need to document things, we need to document them consistently, we need to do it regularly. So what we did with consultation with the building was we created a series of spreadsheets. Those spreadsheets, those checklists are being done on a regular basis. The person is looking at approximately 15 different items in every single classroom. They're dating it, they're signing it, and they're leaving it for the next person so that if it's a different person who comes in the next day, they can see what's been done and they can look at it and we can actually track and create a blueprint as to what's going on. It'll also help us to address the problems before they become bigger problems. We've done a few other things as well. We actually had staff in the buildings all weekend long. As a result of the conversations that we had last week, we realized that we had to expand the scope of the areas that we were cleaning. We started getting into storage closets that hadn't been cleaned in years, some personal closets in each of the individual classrooms and a variety of other places. We found more areas of concern and we addressed them accordingly. We had J.C. Broderick come in once again on Monday, and instead of just looking at the building areas that we were cleaning, we looked at the entire building so that we could have a better snapshot of the entire building, whether it was an area that was impacted by the moisture and resulting mold. So we have a good snapshot of the whole building. I am happy to report that we did that testing yesterday, earlier this evening. We got those results back, and J.C. Broderick and the staff can actually speak to it a little bit better than I can, but we received it all clear. What that means is that the outside ambient air is, the inside air quality is on par with the outside ambient air. So that's a huge step in the right direction. It means that by dehumidifying, by cleaning, we have turned the corner. We've made progress, and I do believe that in the short term, by creating these daily documents and developing better rapport with the staff, we're going to be able to continue to address it and continue to tackle it until we have an opportunity to do some long-term fixes. I'm sorry? That would be the unit ventilator. So one of the people that was in the conversations last week was an engineer from Mr. Grillo uses for his design work. And he looked at the way we use the building, he looked at the mechanical equipment that we have in the building, and suffice it to say that the univents, which are the heating units that also bring fresh air into the classrooms, are old, and they are working against the window air conditioners. Window air conditioners, as per IEPs or teacher requirements, are required. Air conditioning is required in certain places. The only way we've been able to address that in the past is to put a window air conditioning unit. Additionally, in years past, when we've had some humidity issues, window air conditioners were able to help in those circumstances. They did not help to the same extent this past year because the variables were different. Whether it was because the temperature was higher, the humidity levels were higher, or it was for a more extended period of time, I can't tell you definitively. I do know that there are so many variables that we're trying to address each one of them as they come up. But the reason why it's on the agenda tonight is to really talk about long-term plans. We've done a site survey of the building. We've assessed the equipment, the age of the equipment, how the equipment is being used, and we're starting to look at ways that we can upgrade that equipment. For the members of the board who have been on the facility committee, they'll remember that 18 months ago when we started those conversations, we talked about upgrading the equipment at OBMS. There's actually a line item in that proposal that's been presented to the board to replace all of the old unit ventilators and do a lot of this work. We need to expedite that. We can't wait for the community to go out for a vote. We can't take the extra year that it's going to take for SED to approve it. We are very fortunate. The 2014 project is nearing an end. All the work that we awarded to that project has now been finalized, with the exception of the work that was talked about at the last board meeting, which was the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning of the high school. Once we take into account those bids and those numbers, we have quite a bit of money that we can allocate towards those units. So my hope tonight is for you to approve the services of John Wheeler to go out, start looking at the problem in more specific detail, authorize the use of the balance of funds from the 2014 project, which were clearly identified to the taxpayers back when that project was voted in. And I'm also going to ask that we go through the process of using the third-party review, which is instead of going through an S&D and the lengthy process that involves, that we actually go through an expedited process so we can get the approval, we can start the bid process, and we can start doing the work as soon as possible.
So John, is that on the agenda tonight, or will that be on the next agenda?
As far as,
Obtaining Mr. Gorilla's services?
so he's already the architect director for the
No, I
district capital
understand that.
projects. Really what we need to do, because it's already been voter approved, it's a question of authorizing John to start developing the plans and starting that third-party review.
Well, that's the piece I'm referring to.
I have a question for the
So
third
is
party
that, so
review.
does that come on tonight's agenda or next?
I don't think there needs to be an apology for the rules. I don't think it's something that, well, we've already got voter approval to expense the money for heating and ventilation issues related to the building.
Oh, I
So,
thought you were talking about the person that's an expedite.
yes, yes.
Was that on this, on the next one?
No, because we don't have a dollar amount yet. We have to sit down with the purchasing director. We need to finalize the last of the invoices and make sure we have a concrete handle in the numbers. There's a couple of variables, as the board realizes, we know we had a architect that is no longer with the district that we're encumbering funds for. We just need to make sure we dot our i's, cross our t's, that we have the amounts set in stone so we know that we're comfortable with what we're going to do. And that's going to be the authorization for John to go out and do this work. What I propose is that we look at the worst areas, which we clearly identify as the cafeteria, 1 through 5, 10 through 15. Those areas have, through my conversations with a lot of the staff and various people, have proven to be recurring problems. That's not to say they're the only problems, but they're the ones that we know are big problems. We're also going to look at any room in the building that has an IEP for a student and or a teacher requirement. So we're going to prioritize which ones are most important, and then what I recommend, and I think it's a good way to approach it, but I'm certainly open for suggestions, is that we do a per unit cost for additional ones as we get the price. So if I estimate $30,000 to do a room, and the price comes at $25,000 for every 6 rooms, then I do another room.
John, wait, so go back to that $30,000. That was the question. If each one of these unit ventilators were approximately $2,000 to $3,000, so it's a lot more than that.
Substantially.
So for each unit is $30,000?
$25,000 to $30,000 at rough figure. For the ones that we just did in the 2014 project, that's the price.
Okay, so then you're anticipating how many, to be installed that'll be?
Until we sit down with the director of purchasing, I don't want to say definitively, but I do feel that all those high priority areas that I just referenced, we will be able to address.
Okay, great, thank you.
There was a third-party review that you just spoke about, and I know that we talked about the CTA was going to help recommend that a third party.
Different.
Is that something different? I'm
The
not-
third-party review, I'm referring to architectural review. When we talked about, we had that conversation over at OBMS, we were talking about air quality sampling and having a third party.
Are we still doing that? Okay, the air quality sampling then, are we still having a third party look at that?
To date, we've had Robert look at it and the Department of Labor. We haven't had a chance to have that conversation with the CTA to get those, to get their recommended parties so that we can review it and agree on it and establish a PO for that.
Okay, but you are going to do that?
As soon as we get a list of alternatives, third-party review, absolutely. There's very few vendors that are readily available for the district to do this type of work. We have J.C. Broderick and EnviroScience, those are the two that I think 100% of the schools on the island use. That's not to say that it's going to provide the same peace of mind as a third party, which is why we had that conversation last Tuesday, and we'll absolutely continue those conversations. I apologize that I haven't followed up on that recently because I've been dealing with this, and dealing with communications and conversations down there with this, but I will follow up tomorrow.
So I anticipate that the weather is not going to be your friend the next week or two.
Correct.
So what is your, at least for the next 2-3 weeks?
So similar to what we've been doing already, we have commercial grade dehumidifiers in the building. They're plugged in. Because of the noise they make, and as I spoke to the staff today down at OEMS, my recommendation is that we unplug them during the school day, 2:30 in the afternoon, we plug them right back in. We monitor how much moisture is collected in them, and we make determinations, is it still serving the purpose in this room, or would it be better served in a different room? So that's first and foremost. We're dehumidifying, and we're going to continue to do that. In fact, I worked with Sharon earlier in the week, and we're actually purchasing our own instead of having to go out and rent that equipment. Additionally, we're providing custodial coverage 7 days a week. So even over the holiday week, this past weekend, we have people in the building. One, to expand the scope of cleaning, but two, to continue that daily monitoring in each of the individual rooms. In the upcoming week, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have custodial coverage Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, because we can't afford to let something get out of control and lose 4 days before we come back and find it.
So today in particular is very humid. You're okay with today?
We were okay. We didn't see, I mean, in my walking around in the building today, I did not find any areas that were high moisture.
So the walls weren't sweating, no slip floors?
Nothing that I found today. Nothing that I found today.
Now, will tonight sort of be an indicator of what you're gonna find tomorrow? Because I know the levels go,
There's so many variables. I think the inside of the building is cooler than the day the next temperature is going to be. So I don't think that's the indicator. I think it's actually during the heat of the day when we have a larger temperature differential. But I'm not an engineer. I mean, that's just me, using the logic that I have when I sit in my car in the air conditioner and I step out into the parking lot and my glasses off. Using that same type of logic, I'm trying to correlate that into the building and how it happens. It's the change in temperature, it's the surface temperature that causes all that humidity to condensate and cause problems.
Okay, so maybe you can answer the next question. I understand through via Facebook that a lot of parents are extremely concerned about the mold, the health impacts, the breathing this in. So could you talk a little bit?
I'm sure it's Mr. Broderick.
Yes, Mr. Broderick.
I was like, huh?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, what?
So I don't know, remind me of your name again, because I know it's not Broderick. I know you're Broderick.
My name is Ed Dubois.
Edward Broderick, okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, so what is your
So,
question?
I know the main concern, or well, I shouldn't say the main, but one of the concerns with parents is the mold and breathing it in and the health implications from, the mold being present.
Right. So one important factor is that we're always breathing in mold. Mold is a natural organism to this planet. Everywhere on this planet, we will be breathing in mold. Where mold becomes a problem is when it starts growing uncontrolled indoors. And that's where the air samples come into play. So the custodial staff who's done a very aggressive job of cleaning the building and getting all visible signs of it away. The air sampling comes in where the only method we have is to compare with outside. Because as mold does act as an allergen, everyone will respond differently. So it's not like other indoor contaminants that we may measure where there's an exposure value that we can compare to. There is no known exposure value because everyone will act slightly different to different types of mold at different concentrations. So the comparisons are collected from outside the building, samples collected at the same time as samples inside the building, and we do multiple comparisons to make a judgment if it's elevated inside the building. A significant elevation inside the building would give us an indicator that mold is growing inside the building at a higher rate. So the sampling that we received the results on tonight show that the total counts for inside and outside the building, that inside is lower, and the multiple comparisons across the different types of genera of molds are also less inside the building than it is outside.
So is a lot of the areas tested, players tested, that sort of thing?
It's a handheld pump, and what we do is called area composites, where we break the building up into several zones, and we walk the sample around in each one of the classrooms and hallways within that zone.
Now, forgive me if I'm incorrect about this, is this mold anything different than, say, the mold you would get on your grass and tile? Is it very similar, or is it?
It's very similar. So the types of molds that we see in these types of instances are the first types of molds to grow in a high humidity environment. So again, similar to if your shower exhaust fan failed for a couple of days and you started seeing a little bit of mold, this is the same type of high humidity instance that would cause that scenario.
I'm gonna turn it over to the public, 'cause I know.
Here's the map.
So at this time, you don't recommend doing anything other than what we've been doing? I know there was one part of your report that had not a negative, I don't want to say negative, but it had an undesirable, you know what I'm talking about?
2 weeks ago, when we did some of our testing, after we did our initial cleaning, once again, we called in the experts to make their assessment of the situation. They identified 3 areas that they were still concerned about because the levels inside were higher than they were outside. That was the cafeteria, room 3 and 5. Based upon those observations and those tests, we went back in, we re-cleaned those again. So, you know, it's fluid, it's not something that, you know, we can sit there and say, we got everything, it's 100% resolved. It's a process, but, you know, that is a perfect example of a situation where, you know, as much as we try, as much as we make every effort, there's still times when we have to go back and do more.
So here's the bottom line, are the kids okay to start school tomorrow? Do we have to make some sort of rash decision tonight? And not rash, it wouldn't be rash because we have all the information, but do we have to make some sort of decision tonight that will impact the start of school tomorrow?
So all I can say is, based on the data from the testing that we've done, the inside air quality is as good, if not better, than the outside air.
Thank you.
Is there any questions from the board? Okay, I'm going to open it up to the public. I see Mr. Fazio.
Just a quick question. I know I thought it was very clear the other day. You had just said you did an air quality sample after the outside, after the entire building was cleaned. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was there an air sample done while the mold was growing and had its worst point?
No,
Okay, just hold on to that, I'm going to get this out of my head. Okay, so there was no air sample. So while the mold is growing, the mold is getting to its worst point and it's found in a classroom by a teacher in a closet, whatever, would you, with your expertise, say at that particular point, if you did an air quality survey of that building, where the walls in the cafeteria were completely covered, okay, where the stairwells were covered, would you have the same outcomes before it was cleaned?
Can I just comment on that real quick? And please.
And this is the reason I'm asking, because the complaint by the teachers is, yes, after it's cleaned, it comes out fine, air quality samples are the same. Their concern is while it is growing, the students themselves, when it gets to its pinnacle, its worst case scenario, like it was, how damaging is the quality of that air while they're breathing it in until it's clean? That's the question.
That's a good question, but I think from what I've heard from John is by the custodians going into the classroom and checking everything off every day, don't they see that?
Well, it's definitely going to be a give and take, and it's going to be the dialogue that keeps it at bay right now. The other piece of it is, when we identified it as a high humidity issue and mold in locations, I have to say, it did not cover the cafeteria. There were 2 locations on 2 paintings that there was mold. It didn't cover the cafeteria. There was probably a 4-foot area and a 6-foot area on 2 respective places. So I just want to, I'm not saying it's not significant.
That's significant.
I get it, but it's not covered.
The point is, let's go back to my original question. What is the quality of the air while the stuff is growing and people are breathing it in? Is it different than the quality of the air after it's been cleaned? I know it's fine after it's cleaned. My concern is while it's growing, getting that.
And it's hard to speculate when we did not We don't have
What do
that
you think,
data.
your expert opinion?
We've had, in my 16
3 and
years
5
of
would
doing
lead,
this,
3 and 5 would
Right.
lead, and they have higher numbers.
there are times when you can see plenty of mold visible and the air samples are fine. That doesn't dispute the fact that that mold should still be clean. There are other times when we don't see any mold and the counts are high. So it is very difficult to speculate on samples that we don't have. The procedure in place that the custodial staff is following on a daily basis is preventing it from getting to that point. They are following the recommendations by the EPA for cleaning when there is a high humidity environment.
So based on the procedures that are in place right now, regardless of how the opinions are, we're not going to detect OBM, we're covered, not just 4 quarters, covered with mold. Those have been cleaned, and those should not get that amount of mold on going forward. Like you say,
Right, so the procedure in place is to identify this as it occurs so it can be addressed immediately.
Without a doubt, and that room was bad, there's no doubt about it. And I sat there and I spoke at length with the teacher from that room. We discussed it, we talked about it, we actually went in that room today and we both looked at everything else. There is staining in that room, you know. I don't know when it occurred, I don't know how old it is, but there's staining in that room. It's not active mold spores, but there's staining. We have to monitor it to make sure. We will
have pictures taken out.
Can you speak up, please?
I was asking the other day, we did the walkthrough, all the pictures that were in the hallway, and say, most of them had mold, and I'm asking, have those been taken out soon?
So we went through and we inspected all of them. Anyone that had spotting on it was taken down. It was put in the cafeteria. We removed the backs. It was on the left. They're just laid out. We're cleaning it, and we're cleaning each and every one. We have new matting, whereas there was staining. It's not active anymore, but it could be 15, 20 years old for all we know. We're not going to take that chance. We're giving it a clean. We're giving it a cleaning. We're taking care of all that stuff. They put up a bunch of them. They put a bunch back up today. They're going to work on putting a bunch back up tomorrow. Goal is to get them all up by Thursday. If we can't, we're not going to rush it. We're not going to just circumvent the process. We're going to go through the process. We're going to give it some benefits.
Go ahead, question in the back.
We keep hearing how rooms 3
Can you speak up, though?
Sorry, we keep hearing how rooms 3 and 5 were scrubbed and cleaned, and they have these huge dehumidifiers like nothing I've ever seen before. Yet I got called into room 5 today at 2:30 to find half of the cabinets in there had mold in them. And I'm not just talking like what you might see in your grout shower on occasion. I'm talking patches this large in her cabinets. And the only reason why it was found is because the teacher she's sharing a room and said, "Can I have a cabinet to store my stuff?" She said, "Sure, take that one. It's empty." No, it wasn't empty. Because the whole thing, the whole back of the cabinet was covered with mold. It was at least 3 floors that had mold and at least 4 cabinets that had mold. I get it, it's a problem, but then the custodians are coming in to clean it. I love our custodians, they do a great job, but they're not mold experts. And to see this today, after the rooms were scrubbed, hearing these dehumidifiers running and hundreds of gallons of water being pumped out, to still see this black mold everywhere in room 5 was really upsetting.
So then you're saying that we will shut down?
I can't hear you in the back.
During the day. During the day, while our kids are in there, so that's just gonna mold to grow. And as this gentleman was saying, what is the air quality then? What are our kids inhaling while they're in there and this mold is growing because you're shutting down the dehumidifier?
And the staff.
And the staff, I'm sorry, you're right, I didn't mean that.
No, I mean.
And the staff, you know, you're putting our children, our staff, our faculty, our community at risk. A lot of our kids have health issues, and even kids that don't have health issues, or teachers. Now, all of a sudden, the teacher is relocated because they have health issues. So just put them in another building and leave the rest of everybody else in the building that this mold is growing. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
Well, can I ask a question? When did this mold start to surface? Did it surface in June? Did it surface in July, August?
I was down at the building in the beginning of August, looking at a floor, wax on the floor. That room, which was one of the rooms that has historically been a problem, was dry as could be that day. out. In fact, I actually brought Mr. McGuire down there. We were looking at that room. There was no problem in that room at all. But as we walked out of the building, one of the classrooms right next to it had a large amount of moisture on the floor. So the reason being, and I was told, was because the window air conditioner, actually the portable air conditioner that was in that room, was being changed out, and that's why it caused the moisture to accumulate in that room. So it was a moisture issue at that point. It hadn't been there long enough for it to create a mold issue at that point. I then proceeded to go back down to that building a week later and go straight to take a look at it, to reassess it. And at that point, there were several more rooms that had moisture issues in that room. Conditions changed, whether it was the outside humidity, I couldn't tell you
So I
exactly.
hear what you're saying, so
But there were a series
nothing
of
apparent in June, nothing apparent in July. So June, we have children in the building, obviously July, we don't have children in the building. So when we talk about the mold servicing, is it just August, September, that it's becoming a problem? Is it other times of the year that it's surfacing? I don't expect you to answer it, everything, no.
Why is it just this school too?
Well,
Well, I
you
just,
just took
I
the
want
words
to
out of
get
me
the,
now. Let's just say the reason why I'm not speaking, because he's familiar with this building. The reason why I'm not is that I did about, I was in 3 different school buildings myself today. So this is not indigenous to this building. This year, because of this stretch of high humidity and high temperatures, and the fact that the buildings are dormant, it's not the worst thing. The only thing worse than overusing a building is not using it at all. So when you have these short periods of time when we have such high humidity and high temperatures that there's no movement inside the building, it's prime conditions. So the truth of the matter is when the building's occupied, you're going to have airflow, people walking in and out. That potential for that mold growth is going to grow. It's not going to be as prevalent because there's a movement. And the mold can grow within 24 to 48 hours. So it could be something like, but for instance, we had situations, I went today, there was literally somebody in there last Friday who went in today and there's mold. So and as far as like, what we're talking about the process is that everything we do, every approach we take to these investigations are very strict in accordance with protocols put out by OSHA, PESH, the EPA, the Department of Labor, IICRC, and we investigate the problem we identify. And then and with that as a complement, now even though these procedures, none of them, whether it be FEMA, OSHA, CDC, EPA, none of them even recommend air sampling. That's part of an assessment, part of an evaluation, they don't even recommend it. It's an above and beyond as an assessment tool. So we, in addition to that, we identify whether or not we see this known contaminant at a hazardous level. So there's only 2 times we recommend closing a school building, right? One is if we don't have a known contaminant at a hazardous level, or we don't have an opportunity to investigate and identify what the concern of the problem is. In this case, we did investigate, we identified it, we know what it is, it's high humidity. And it's going to be high humidity, we don't have air conditioning, and just like every other school building come around, and I'm telling you, we've been in a lot of buildings this year. We've been in a lot of buildings in the last 5 days. And what's the proper, so we know what the condition is, the high humidity. What's the proper response? The EPA has a very specific protocol. That is exactly what's being implemented. You monitor it, you see it, you clean it with detergent, that's it. They're not required to do air sampling, but we did it anyway. The sample that we identified and we did shows now very favorable results, that what they're doing is effective. So what we can tell you is that we know what caused the mold growth. We've identified it, we put actions in place to minimize that from happening. And then so far that process seems to be working and very favorable. And it should be pointed out, and again, I wasn't there to talk to another building, but it's my understanding that PESH, basically OSHA for the public employees, was there, visited this building and went through it.
Yes.
And agreed with the same action. And what's happening is normal. It's a condition that's really uncontrollable at this point, but the best action to be taken is going to be done by the students. So now I can't guarantee anybody. I will say, like I understand you're saying these trust me. We've seen mold issues. We've done work all over that in Katrina. And these aren't, and it's not that these are something that we want. We do close buildings. We closed after Hurricane Katrina. We closed about a half a dozen buildings all over Nassau County where the storm surge. This past year, we closed 3 hotels down in Miami.
because we've identified a protocol, we've established a condition that we believe is resulting in a hazardous condition, so we will do that. We will recommend it. We just have not seen that. As long as the actions that are being taken are being done quickly, properly, and we can monitor what's going on, and we're seeing this condition, that I don't have enough data, I don't have enough proof or anything to suggest that you have to close the building.
All right, I have like two parts to this.
Speak up if you could.
If you can speak up, that would be great, thank you.
My question is, as far as the cleaning goes, I understand the LGI was affected. Was the carpet removed? It was not. So that could be basically just housing mold spores. So the second the humidity gets to that, it just keeps growing. It just keeps it just keeps growing. I know in the past, after Sandy, in my neighborhood where I lived at the time, everybody had to remove their carpet. That was the first thing the insurance company said. Get it out. If you had ceiling tiles, get it out. Have these porous surfaces that the mold feeds on been removed from the building? And if so, were they removed in such a way that the spores did not spread from the location that they originated in?
And there's a difference here between a sandy type condition and a humidity type condition.
I understand that, but
we have there are several guidelines, and there are stacks of guidelines that say how to react to each type of building material based upon the type of water that impacts. So when you look at a Hurricane Sandy type material, that is what we call Category 3 water, where a humidity type issue is a Category 1 type water. There are also...
Just what I say.
No, I got it.
Category
The difference
3
between
water
flooding
is
and
water that's
humidity.
coming in contaminated with fuel
Right.
oil, goose, everything
Yes.
that's in the water, and it gets absorbed by the padding of the carpet. So that is a no-brainer, gets moved out. This is condensation on the surface. Now, with that said, long-term thing, like as an indoor air quality specialist, we don't like carpeting, period. So, but it's again, is it something that needs to be, is that something long-term that we
But
would
something like
recommend?
wet ceiling tiles.
The same thing is that depending on what it got wet with, the saturation index on it, and that would be determination on whether, but your ceiling tiles that you can't, we need those.
Yeah, but they're cheap compared to other building supplies. That's what I'm saying.
No,
It's
if
a
it was-
lot
if
less
it-
expensive than, say, drywall.
No, if it got saturated and it went, like what I said, once it hit that category for disposal, then that would have been recommended.
Okay. And the air quality you're saying is good compared to outside. That I understand when it's a clean building and empty buildings. When you get 1,000+ students, staff, and everybody walking around, rubbing up against this and putting it back in the air, who's to say that the air quality wouldn't change just from activity within the building, especially if you don't have the dehumidifiers right? And heat and humidity is only going to get worse over the next few days. At what point do we consider keeping the school closed until this heat wave passes? And the mold can be properly remediated?
For the record, as far as how the mold is being remediated,
Yes.
it is being properly remediated. The EPA guidelines are being followed. If we were talking about saturated drywall that is growing mold both on the inside of the wall cavity and the outside, where you have to cut out the sheetrock and physically remove it, yes, some of the procedures that you are referencing about setting up containment, doing it in a way that doesn't release it, is absolutely true. For the areas that we are seeing, the level of containment of being used, or local containment, if you will, that the custodial staff is using, is sized for the amount of mold that is being seen.
I have a question. Forgive me if I don't ask. So, the young lady back there made a good point about opening up a closet door and having this whole thing, kind of over it. Was at the school, Thursday, kids. And there were rooms that distinctly smelled like mold. It's a very sick smell, and especially when you sensitive to. You said that the guidelines are being followed. Who exactly is following the guidelines? Is it our custodial staff, or do we have a professional cleaning crew that is coming in and genuinely going to my records? I think, and I could be wrong, and I don't really want to speak for anybody else, but for myself, I would say that I would feel better obviously not that level, but something along that, is that what we're doing, or we're just giving the guidelines and overseeing our custodial staff so that they are now responsible for all the things, which is really not.
Do you want to address that question?
At this point, as I stated earlier, when we had a humidity issue and we saw that overnight, that 24-hour mold, bloom and everything else, we reached out to that company. We reached out to that remediation company. Correct me if I'm wrong, the right to know and all the different things that we do on a yearly basis, all the custodial training, they are as qualified to do the cleaning as these remediation companies.
Yes, we're not talking about demolition of building material. We're talking about surface cleaning.
And using the products that we have readily available to us properly.
But do you genuinely say that the limited amount of staff that we have, qualified or not, I do believe they are qualified, to adequately, thoroughly clean each and every one of those classrooms from top to bottom, and without missing or whatever? I think that if an outside company that has an entire crew, it's like that landscaping crew versus mowing their own lawn, it's the same thing. I just feel like it might be more effective, and I think it's kind of a small price to pay, maybe help the community out for what it is.
It's my understanding, actually brought more custodians in, they're doing it 7 days a week. I am concerned about Route 5 though, is it something that
No,
needs to
there
address?
isn't. Joe is clean, too, but it's not clean twice, right?
She said it was just-
And they all check every.
So you come in
But-
and after you fall, and said something you don't need, they follow protocol, go there and take care of the problem.
In other words, if we have any good communication, or you,
Is there mold now, is there mold now?
Well, did you let him know this way, he makes sure something goes, you're gonna miss a spot, like they said.
No, no, if I hire an outside company, that's what I'm trying to.
That wasn't room at the outside company clean.
It's good, and they could have very well,
You know, we're gonna go through this, it's gonna be a process. There's no crystal ball that says we need, that we're gonna be able to address every single.
Well, I just think like.
so even if they were in the room, they could be in that room cleaning it today, and then what you're saying to me is, if I'm hearing correct, tomorrow, that mold could grow right back again.
Kids going into that room now, teachers.
So I'm gonna ask a question, a nice layman question. So I've seen these shows, and that's why I kind of not a fan of going away on vacation. They say if you close the light, you put the blue light on and you can see. But is that something how you can identify?
We've actually purchased UV lights for the custodians, and they've been over this past week going around to certain areas. We did expand the scope of work that they do. They typically were not going into storage closets or regular classroom closets. Now we need to get into cabinetry, and that is a huge oversight, and I apologize. It's not
So
acceptable.
then, all the cabinets and closets have not, I can't hear what you said, I'm sorry, clean and checked. At this point, because it was poured out. So you're gonna be able to do that in a 24-hour period and have everything clean and prepared for our students and our staff. Well, I'm sorry, the staff is going in tomorrow, so while this cleaning is going on, while the mold is going around, the staff is taking the set. Our teachers, our staff, our faculty. How is that, that's what I don't understand, we're putting people at risk, and I'm sorry, gentlemen, no disrespect to either of you, you guys think that, maybe we're laymen or whatever, you guys keep joking around and laughing. I'm sorry, did you put your family at risk knowing that there is a chance that there's mold building in this building? It's just, it's lunacy that you would even share. Exposing our kids, our staff, our teachers, our faculty to this, for what, to start school on time?
Is that dangerous kind of mold that was accumulating 24 hours?
no, it's, odds are if you clean the surface, it's gonna, you remove the nutrient source for the mold to grow. And it will grow again. And what we're saying is that it can, if that nutrient source comes back, and the moisture there is again, returns again, then it could grow.
And that's why.
But as far as the type
Process.
of mold spores, again, the mold spores aren't created spontaneously creating within these spaces. Every mold spore that's inside this building, inside that building, was outside and it came in. All right, so mold is everywhere. Like when you were born and the doctor slapped you on the mouth, you think that first, you breathed in a mouthful of mold spores and you're going to breathe it in again. And hopefully God will on your last breath. Now, the only difference is, like what I said before, the only time it becomes not even a concern, not a hazard, but a concern is when we have it growing inside. So instead of this cladosporium of penicillium mold at 5 colony forming in its outside, we're at 50,000 inside. That's when we start saying we have a mold concern inside. All right, so now that doesn't happen from 5 square feet to 10 square feet. Technically, within a space, a functional space, the EPA only identifies somewhere as over 160 square feet of mold spores is when you really have a mold problem, a mold concern. And we see that. Like we said, we've seen that when we go to hotels and we go into it, we pull back the wallpaper and there's just black mold behind it. I mean, that's when you have a chronic mold problem. And then you're trying to figure out where's that moisture coming from? What's causing that? What are they being exposed to? That's not the case here. We've identified what the concern is, moisture on the surfaces, just, and it's creating patches of mold growth throughout. So the idea is, like, right now, the sampling that we're shooting, like, what we do have is sampling that has been done after the custodian's cleaning, under the current conditions that we've seen in the building as of Monday. And we've seen really good results. We're talking really good results. I mean, I just want to, like I said, I've been busy.
How was I received with the LGI?
I guess so less than half up.
Good. Hold on 1 second. We had 4 board members all in that LGI the other day. You can tell me to the cows come home how great the air quality is. Every single one of them said this LGI's got to be taken care of because it stunk to high head. I went home for 2 days. Okay? All of a sudden, my throat was scratchy and my nose felt like I had been in here for 6 days instead of an hour. It wasn't that way before I walked in. I couldn't even hear out of my ears. I was so clogged up. So your air quality tests may be fine and dandy. They might meet every statute, regulation, to God knows, okay? The bottom line is, the reality of the situation is, our teachers are complaining about that LGI and the stink in there and the unhealthy air quality in there for 10, 15 years. We have parents complaining about the air quality there. We had 4 school board members walk out of there saying, this place has to be taken care of. It's a mess. We saw active mold growing on instrument cases. So all the data, all the information you're given, okay, I said it before, I'll say it again, it's beyond that. We've been hearing this for 15 years. They are sending their children there. My teachers are going in there and asking to be removed from the building because they've gotten certain sicknesses and illnesses over the years. They go home with red, watery, itchy eyes and sinus infection that they do not have during the summertime. So all the data, all the quality testing that's done, it means nothing to the people that are concerned about it. It really doesn't. That's what you guys do. They say air quality, they say drinking water, the federal, the people who do this kind of work say it all the time. And then you have people, they find out later on, the iron levels are poisoning kids. And this is poisoning this one, and this is poisoning that one. But the guys who went in and measured said everything was cool. They said the air in New York City was cool too, after the towers came down eventually. And it wasn't. People moved the hell out of there who was smart. So again, I appreciate everything they're doing right now going forward. I am confident this is the first time in my 35 years in this district that they are taking the bull by the horn. So I will tell you that. It's the first time in all my years I've seen a group of parents here complaining about the air quality at OBM, and I applaud you for being here, because our teachers and the CTA have been complaining about it for 20 years. And we used to get answers like, you guys are crazy, there's nothing wrong here. They acknowledge there's a problem here. And I will say, from the superintendent on down to the board, they have given us their word that no matter what it takes going forward, they are going to do to remediate and fix the problem. It's the first time in my 35 years they've actually talking about a plan. So that's all good, positive stuff. And I want you to know that these guys have been working their tails off since last week. And the letter that was sent out, I was 100% supportive of, because it was honest, it gave you the facts, that went to the faculty and staff, okay? They had been working diligently to get that building where it needs to be to open up to students. So, but again, I totally understand. I just don't want this to be what you leave with, because none of this means anything. All this razzle-dazzle, fancy talk means nothing to them, it means nothing to my teachers. It's what you guys do, and that's fine. But the reality of it is, there are parts of that building that need to be torn down and built from the ground floor up, and the cause of the humidity isn't air conditioning, there's a lack of air conditioning, nothing to do with that, all right? It's a much bigger problem now. That cause needs to be found, and that cause still hasn't been found. Humidity, where's humidity coming from? Why does every building in this district have a mold problem? How come our auditorium at the high school 3 years ago, you could drench, you could wring out the water that was in the drain? We were told because the air conditioner broke. Now I'm being told maybe because we use air conditioners it's causing it. Then they were told they have to keep the air conditioner on in there to avoid having mold. So what is it? Find the cause. I'm confident that this Board of Education, this administration, are going to fix this problem, one way or the other. And that I say to the parents, and I say to my own staff. Okay, they are going to fix this problem. But all the numbers and telling people that the air quality is better than it is outside, going in one ear and out the other, guys, because we've been hearing that for so many years and people are still getting sick. So I like better the reality of what you guys have said, that you're willing, you recognize there's a problem. First time ever that they actually recognize the problem since I've been here. That's a great first step. So all this other stuff is a waste, all right? You guys find the reason, find the cause, know what's going to fix it, all right? Your architect and whoever else you deal with, all right? Invest the money into doing whatever that needs to be done, okay? And I think then you'll start seeing improvements in the building and people being satisfied with what's going on. The rest of this stuff is much more.
That's the objective.
I, for one, I'm happy to know the number.
I can't hear you.
Things are being taken care of and safe. Appreciate you being here. And if you're correct in all that you're saying, things are getting better, let's just let them do what they're doing. And move forward.
I appreciate you coming and sharing your knowledge. It's got to be a tough thing to handle here. I appreciate it. My concern is for our allergy kids. First of all, let me be clear, for everybody, but I am highly allergic to mold. What is the best, because it doesn't seem like we're going to problem solve here, what is the best solution for the immediate fix, or bigger solution? Is it to not use those rooms? Is it to get rid of those cabinets? With your expertise and again, I had a restoration company come in and I do agree our facility can clean. I do. It is, and I've seen, of course, mold where we have to have ventilators and kind of the plastics and it can get pretty. Obviously, it's not at that point because you can do it again. But it is bad enough, or it is a big concern. What is an immediate thing we can do to get our kids in the street?
Really, there's a lot covered.
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry.
So let me start with,
Like that one cabinet.
Yeah.
Can you just speak into the microphone? I put this thing in my ear, I can't hear.
Just to bring a couple of things. One of the points is that when we do investigate, we sit there and say that we've never found anything is erroneous. It's not true. I mean, as a matter of fact, we came in and we identified conditions. There was some examples where the cleaning was performed and they said they were done. We said that was not enough. We want to clean it more. So like I said, the only thing we can do as scientists is to go through established protocols. And we go say, this is what the experts, the EPA, in this case, we're following EPA, following OSHA, following FEMA, following CDC, IICRC. They all said, do this investigation, this inspection. That's exactly what we did. As a result of that, we did identify concerns. We did identify mold growth. We did identify moisture concerns. In order to address the bigger problem with moisture, which again is relative humidity, and there it is, it's very complicated. It's called psychometrics. We have different temperatures and different amount of moisture in the air. Sometimes air conditioning can help, and then sometimes air conditioning can't. It's very complicated. It's very frustrating. But that's science, that's just the reality. So when you ask them so we identified a problem, they've implemented the process in accordance with the EPA standards, which is specifically for school buildings. So the custodial staff is out doing it. When we do have demolition, remediation that requires demolition, pulling up carpets, knocking down walls, pulling ceiling tiles down, that's what we call gross demolition. In those cases, yes, we do recommend that work be performed by a remedial contractor using specific containments. But in this process, when it's just surface cleaning, they usually, the custodial staff is more than adequate. They are professional cleaners. We don't recommend, the EPA don't recommend different kind of solvents because now we're introducing other chemicals that people can be allergic to. What it's showing based upon what we've seen and then the sampling that was performed, again, is a quality assurance. We take all it is and say it shows that they're being effective. So to answer your question, what's the best thing to do in the short term of what we're doing is exactly what you're doing. Does that mean they're going to miss a square inch here, a foot, something behind it? Yes, obviously it's possible it's actually happening. Is that going to result in a condition that we believe to be detrimental in accordance with all these kind of regulations and standards that we're looking at? No, but that's all I can go on.
So
I
isn't
can't.
it true that there are no standards set by OSHA? So you can say it's not hazardous, but you don't know it's safe.
That's correct.
You can't say it's safe for us, we're sick. We're getting sick.
Well, and I'm not going to, and I'm not a doctor, and I wouldn't say that what is safe for you. That's why I'm not using the words. I'm saying we're meeting. What we're saying is that the levels
I
outside.
just want the community to realize, saying it's not hazardous, because OSHA has no standards set. So you can't say we're safe in that building long term.
Right, safety is a word, because without knowing what your susceptibility to what mold at what concentrations, there's no way I can say that for you. For instance, you could be in a room and feel sick, and I could be fine. Like even myself.
What you feel, there's long-term effects to existence.
Yeah, right. So all we're establishing is that the concentrations of molds that we tested outside are the same or less inside.
But the building's still running.
I can only give you, I have to give you a scientific approach to it. And this is the sampling. The sampling we do is an established sampling methodology that compares this to established methodology. All it's saying is that if you're getting sick from at that moment we took the samples inside, then you were getting sick outside because you were exposed to the same concentrations even more outside. And that's because the inside, it's demonstrated that the unit ventilators that are on upper working that do have filters are actually filtering, and it's keeping it lower. So I don't have the luxury. Like I said, I'm the one here that's to be concerned because I'm the one saying I'm not finding it. Like I said, if there was a reason for me to say it's closed, if I had a reason, and just like we said, when we said there's a reason to clean this because we found this, there's a reason to implement these because we saw them all. There's a reason if we're going to recommend something because we found a harmful contaminant at a hazardous level. I can't find that. I can't go on, I got a feeling.
Not interested in
Yeah, exactly.
And I just say this, I know the board is willing to spend money on the event. I know we're willing to do everything possible to remedy this, to stand behind our custodians and what they're doing. If worse comes to worse, we're going to close that building, and you've got kids who go to Ronkonkoma. That's the worst thing that's going to happen out of this. We're doing everything possible to keep your kids home, to keep us in a safe environment, to spend the millions of dollars we have to spend to remediate. And hopefully, it's going to work. I'm guessing it's going to take a year at least to get those unit ventilators in. Am I correct?
The process of drawing up plans, getting them reviewed by the architect, third-party architect, and actually the ordering and delivery of that equipment is going to take several months. In the spring, we may have a chance to sit down and work with the building and see if we can do one or two a night, but it's going to be a process.
Right. So that's the last ditch effort here. Almost sounds like it. From based on what you're saying, it's a moisture problem, and it's the air conditioning with the atmosphere and everything's not working
I
together.
don't think it's a last stitch. I think it's one of the variables.
Okay.
And I think it's one that the experts, the engineers have looked at it and said, this is the first place you have to start.
Right.
I wish I could say with 100% certainty that it's going to be the cure-all. I can't, but I know that it's a big piece of it.
Okay, so once we solve that big piece, there's only so much you can do with it. After a while, if there's moisture coming from underneath the ground, we're going to have to close that building someday. Linda, if this continues, what choice are we going to have? We can't keep pouring billions of dollars into rebuilding if we're not fixing it. So I think we're following your guidelines, we're following their guidelines, and we're doing everything possible to make us, put us in a safe environment. They are cleaning 7 days a week. They brought more custodians in to help. I am a little upset about, you know, this, you know, I would close that classroom down if we could. I would close that, and if there's another room available, close that classroom and keep it clean until they do what they have to do. Because it sounds like a lot of growth came in overnight, or it was not overlooked. You know, and I don't want to, you know, here and there, but I think, you know, if you close that room, if you guys are doing the job, and I believe they are, and I know you're on top of it, I know you guys are on top of it, and we're going to open buildings, we can order the parts to make it better, and then, you know, we'll see where we go, but I would try and close that classroom if that's not an error on, that was just not an overlooked problem, not just for overnight, then we should close that one.
I'm not trying to diminish the problem. The other night I went to a Godsmack concert and I happened to run into an engineer. I'm not going to name the hospital facility he works in. He's the head engineer of the facility. So I started to talk to him about the problem we're facing here at ConnectQuad. He said this is the worst he's seen it in 30 years. He said he has got his hands full. Again, I'm not going to mention the facility. He said he's got his hands full. He said, so I said, well, these are the steps we're taking. He said, you guys...
And that's in a hospital environment?
Yes, he said, we're doing what they're doing, and they're in a hospital setting. He said, you're doing exactly what we're doing here.
And then just to support, again, I mentioned it once, I had mentioned it, but PESH, the Public Employees Safety and Health Administration, the representative who's responsible for safety of public employees, the teachers, came and did their own inspection. They came and walked through the building. They looked through all the data that we collected their own data. And they concluded that what the actions that the school district had taken are appropriate for it. So it's like, again, there's no guarantees in life. I wish I could guarantee everything. But what we're saying is that based upon what we're seeing now, the upkeep of the district, I mean, and the custodial staff is doing a really good job. And the question of the testimony of whether or not doing a job is around the sampling that we just did, which suggests that they are doing an appropriate job. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, say that if you pull back a carpet or go behind a door that you might find some mold growth between now and then. But what I will assure you is that that amount of mold growth is not something that would be typically recommended of closing the building. And I have to go both. I have to, just as I'm going to keep a building, it's not close a building, or if I recommend they do, because there's consequences to closing a building. There's a big disruption to kids, buses, families. So I have to be, I kind of have to go right down the middle, what I think is right. I don't try to, we fight with insurance companies all the time on things like this, because they don't want to save, but then I see people say we don't do enough. So all I can do is identify and make sure that we're implementing these procedures properly, we're collecting the samples, and we're interpreting them properly. And in this case, we've given you our opinion based upon how it's happening, but it also concurs from that the Public Employee Safety and Health Administration agreed with us on that.
I also want to hear from the Teachers Association, what their recommendation would be. Is it just closing the room? Do you want us to move to RMS?
I know I spoke a lot, but I want both parts. My point to them was, for us, the teachers, and many parents have heard this, and I'm not I don't want to make it disrespectfully, but they've heard all this. They don't really care about what they're saying.
Well, that's what I want to know. What
they're doing
do
everything
you want?
they're supposed to do. I think I said that. I said from the top of the superintendent down to John to everyone else, custodians, they are following on. They are doing the right thing now. How it got to this point is another question. That's for you folks to deal with.
No more frustrated over the past.
Okay? Yes, from these last 2 weeks, John has done an amazing job working, communicating with the association. Okay? We've had many discussions, and he's following all the right protocols. Now, I asked him specifically that question, and he said, going forward, you will never see the girders look like that again. I take him at his word. I hope we never do. If we're doing everything he's put into place, we shouldn't. So to answer your question, Ms. Panico, I'm confident in what they're doing right now, going forward.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that you guys.
I know we're very supportive of what's going on right now.
All right, I want to take 2 more questions, and then we're going to close this discussion. Any, good? Is it another question in the back?
No, I just wanted to make a statement, I'm so tired of talking about mobile all day long. But it's very sad when we walk into our morning with a checklist of every spot number where mobile was found and cleaned overnight. I just want everybody in the room to think about it. Every night when you come home from work, when you put your kids in bed and you sit down on the couch and someone hands you a list of all the places in your home where these harmful mold spores were found and cleaned throughout the day. It's like that gift that keeps on giving. Every morning I'll look at walk in and have like a checklist. Mold was here, mold was there, mold was here, mold was there. Have a good day. You'll get your next list tomorrow. Like that's just it's a very sad way to work. And I appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate everybody coming down today. Like, it's nice to know that everybody cares, but it's really sad that that's the reality of every day.
Your last question.
Bottom line, custodial and teachers, how do you feel about opening on Thursday? As a parent, I need to know because my kid does not have the greatest health record. And last year alone, his absenteeism rate and the amount of times he was sent home from school, going to school healthy and then coming home sick, doubled. He's been in 4 elementary schools. He's never been as sick as he was last year. He starts Thursday in 7th grade. I need to know your opinion because I respect your opinion more than anyone else in this situation. Should we
Are
open?
you asking me?
Yeah, you and John.
Based on everything that the district has done over the last 2 weeks, okay, I agree wholeheartedly with my member back. It is very sad and frustrating. We're not going to change this overnight. We're not going to fix it overnight. That being said, I believe with what they're doing right now, and what they've done over the last 2 weeks, based on the last 2 weeks, I would send my child there without hesitation. That being said, again, I think it was said, it affects children, it affects people differently.
Exactly.
That little couple of spots or 4 foot on the wall when that kid's in that cafeteria, I'm not a doctor, but from my understanding and research, that could affect that child, and your child might go in and not affect them
But if you're
whatsoever.
comfortable being in the building yourself,
Yes, I was in
then
there.
I'd be
was in
okay
there-
sending
I was
him.
in there the other day. It wasn't pleasant in the LGI, okay, but I know they've been doing a lot of work in there. They've been cleaning the rugs. I do agree with you. I wish they would get rid of that rug. That would be, if nothing else, it would make people feel better.
Yeah.
If nothing else, it would be an emotional thank you, okay? It would be something I think the teachers
Take the
would
carpet down,
appreciate, the
paint the
students,
concrete.
something maybe to consider. Again, you lift up that rug, I don't know what the problems are underneath it. So, but yes, I would send my kid there on Thursday. I would go in that building on Thursday. If I had a medical issue that it really disturbed me, okay, I would ask for some type of accommodation. I would ask for an air filter in my classroom, okay, something of air purifier. I would do that immediately as soon as if I believed it was going to cause me any kind of health concerns. But I would go in, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys for answering questions. Okay. Okay, we're moving on to item number 2, Cherokee staff room. Bob, would you like to discuss that?
Sure. As of 2 o'clock this afternoon, kindergarten, we had 2 sections of 24 and 1 section of 22.
That's in the kindergarten.
What we can do because of this 24. That's correct.
So I would like to ask for the board's approval to open up 2 aide positions, 2 teacher aide positions, 1 for each one of those kindergarten classes, as in the past when we've gotten kindergarten classes that were at 24 or 25. This board has been generous enough to add an additional aide into the section. All of our kindergarten classes carry a teacher and a teaching assistant, but in the past the board has given an additional adult teacher aide to kindergarten classes with 24 and 25. So I would ask the board's permission to look for folks to fill those 2 positions.
That'll be clarify, that'll be 3 adults in a room of 24 children.
That is correct.
All right,
Kindergarten.
In kindergarten.
Kindergarten.
Right.
Okay, yes?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Let's move on to invisible.
You want to just give the 3rd grade numbers?
one section of 23, one section of 24.
And the normal is 28, correct? That's our limit?
We try not to go that high whenever possible. In my memory here, we haven't gone that high. Fortunately, we haven't reached that number.
Have we ever reached these numbers?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to, the next item, number 3, St. Mary Private School busing. Linda?
Yes, so, I received an email actually multiple emails from parents of students who attend both St. Mary's and I think St. Patrick's, one of them was as well, that it was unusual this year to not receive busing prior to our students being bused. So there's a general regulation in SED that says that school districts can but do not have to provide busing until the public students get bused to school. So our classes begin on Thursday in Connecticut School District. Classes at the private and parochial schools that some of our students attended, some of them began today, and some of them actually starting from school began last week on August 28th. But some of them began today and some of them will begin tomorrow. I was told by our interim director of transportation that it was a general practice that we did not bus students and that it was not unusual for our busing to begin on the day that our classes began. I've since done some research myself on that and found out that that is not a true statement. That in the past, our parochial students were bused on this day, Tuesday and Wednesday, and even sometimes to start their school in August. So I absolutely apologize to the community because that is a changing practice that should not have been changed and is never discussed with administration or the board. It was just something that our interim director came in, was given that information from the staff in that program and moved forward with that information. So I truly apologize to the community because we should have been busing kids yesterday and today to this different schools, and we will commence with that again next year. Unfortunately, at this point, it's actually too late for me to call bus drivers and say, please run the routes tomorrow. We did ask the interim director that today, and he said it was impossible. However, we will move forward with the protocol of busing our parochial and private students on the days following Labor Day, as we always have in the past, and I truly apologize. This was not something that was brought up to administration or to the board.
Linda, just one last thing. For those parents that did reach out to you, could you respond to them?
I will email them back.
No, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the National Sunday Schools Board Association dinner.
I did not get the resolution list. I looked through my emails, and I did not get the resolutions list to fill that out.
Other board members, did you get that directly? Because I never get that. The resolutions
You
list
guys
that they're
get
going
it?
to talk about. It's
It's a book. I didn't get it in the mail, I didn't get it in the email, I did not get it.
We haven't seen that, so maybe it's not in yet. I think this is so that you can go to the dinner meeting and
Right.
talk about the
And talk
resolutions.
about
But I haven't seen them yet.
When is the dinner?
September 27th.
So,
So it's
Jericho.
maybe that's when they actually formalize them.
yeah, I saw that, Madam, but that's not the resolution list. There's
You
no,
want to call up,
it wasn't me.
you want to call
So,
them?
I can just pull up NISBA and get that?
Yes, I don't see why you can't.
Okay, so, I think do we have to discuss it tonight, or can we let you know?
Well, we table it, when's our next meeting?
Is it, that's too late?
Yeah, because the time is the 21st, you have to notify cancellations on or after, I'm sorry, after the 21st.
So I would like to call up tomorrow and get the list of resolutions. If there's nothing concerning, then I don't want to go. If I see something concerning, do we have to vote it on, and
So we can do that now, if you see something.
To attend? Yeah, we can always not attend. We have to encumber the money, so you need to let us know that it's okay for us to encumber the money for one person to attend. Both you and Mark are going to the actual meeting in October, so you'll be voting on that eventually. If one of you are going to go and be the
So what is
voting.
this dinner then? Is that just a discussion of the
I think
resolution?
it's just a discussion. I don't think it's actually, we don't finalize or vote until the actual meeting in October.
Okay.
Well, this is also the blueprint for action to enhance school safety. Is that the I mean, that's
Is
not,
that one of the resolutions?
it's a blueprint, it's a discussion. So I'm not sure what your resolution is for discussion. I don't know, the blueprint for action.
So can I call, I would like to call them tomorrow, find out the information, and then can I let you know tomorrow in an email?
So would you mark down for yes, no, or sin if you decide not to?
Right, I don't
So
want to cost this
we're
anyone
looking at two right now potentially.
potentially, but maybe not.
Correct. Okay, so
Okay.
put it down to 2 and then we can always rescind.
We can always not, we won't put in the application to go until she's notified.
Okay, what is the date? No, what is the date of the?
21st.
I always have to check my calendar.
All right, let's move on to Budget Advisory Committee.
It's the actual date, the dinner is the 27th.
Oh, that's what
The RSVP date is the 21st. The
Right.
dinner itself is the
27th
27th.
is on one day.
It's a Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay, Sharon, would you like to take this question, Budget Advisory Committee?
I actually did not put this on the agenda,
I didn't
but
put it either.
is the board seeking to have a budget advisory committee?
I do want to, I've said this many times, that I think the Budget Advisory Committee should be a rolling Budget Advisory Committee from year to year. So I would like to start it as early as possible before January. I know last year there was a problem, we started like in February, and then by the time they got together and had to vote on things and discuss things, there wasn't enough time. So I would like to start it as soon as possible, like October at the latest, to put a Budget Advisory Committee together.
So Sharon, would you mind maybe having your secretary to send out to the organizations to see if anybody be interested in, if they send out this week if you can, or next week early, to see if any of our organizations would be interested in starting in October.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the thing is, I want to respect Sharon's time in this, and sometimes you only have 1 or 2 people that are on the Budget Advisory Committee. So what do you think would be a fair amount of people to attend?
Well, that's been the problem in the past. The reason that there's only been 1 or 2 people is because there's not enough time and the suggestions are not always taken. So I think we start with a good practice of actually listening to people and getting it done early enough where they can actually come up with some good solutions and some good suggestions. I think we'll get a better turnout.
I have to be honest with you, I believe that Sharon does consider those comments and suggestions. Some of them are plausible, some of them are not. So, I mean, but I do believe that Sharon is very articulate and she answers those questions.
I'm not saying that she's not. I know
So,
last year there was a problem with
I
communication.
don't know, when you kind of say it like, well, we don't take our suggestions.
Well, I can tell you, I was on it last year, and we had very little time to give any
And
suggestions.
did Ms. Donnelly give you the adequate answers to your questions?
The
Otherwise, it's really
questions were never forwarded to Ms. Donnelly last year, unfortunately.
Well, that I was not aware.
Right.
All right, so maybe we can change that a
Yeah.
little bit, but I know that Sharon is very good at answering
Sharon
questions.
is when she gets the
And tell you
questions.
reasons why things can be included and reasons why they cannot be included.
Yes. Yeah, that's why we're starting early, so that
So when you
Sharon.
say not taking suggestions, it's almost like saying like, well, we're telling her what to do, but she's not doing it.
No, there were suggestions in the past, I've been on it many times, and in the past, there were some common sense suggestions that the board, it's not Sharon, it was not Sharon, it was the board at that time that we were speaking to the wall. Sharon was always available and always answered the questions when she got them.
So would you mind maybe next week sending out letters, see if we'd be interested in it?
Okay, and can we just discuss the format?
Back in the day, it used to be that the superintendent and I would meet with the group at the beginning. And the meetings would occur before the budget meetings. Then the BAC members would attend the board meetings / budget meetings. We knew when the meetings were, we knew where they were. I would be available, invited or not, which is fine. But they could call me to come down if they wanted, or ask if they wanted me to leave the room. But there have to be minutes that come back. It can't just be a committee that's running wild and getting information and not reporting back. We have not been getting minutes. There hasn't been feedback to the board. And I think that's important that we have that, so that it's productive.
Could you put that in your letter, maybe it's template of what you expect, you know?
Well, that's always been in the charge.
Okay.
That's always been part of the agreement, but it hasn't been happening. We weren't even informed of where the meetings would be or when.
I know last year was an issue because again, they started late and you didn't get anything forwarded to you. Because when I asked you about it, you didn't have an email. So I know that was an issue last year because we were sending an email in and it wasn't getting forwarded to Sharon. But when we spoke at the board meetings, and that's when you guys, it was talking to a wall, so we didn't have the communication that we will have now.
So would you want in the future, maybe?
I think that's a great idea.
That communication be one of the executives.
Sure. Sure, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Can I just go backward, because we never actually took an official vote for the Nassau Suffolk School Boards Association dinner meeting. So I just need to hear what the vote would be, whether we're going to encumber that monies for Mr. Washoe and Mrs. Panico.
I have, yeah, as a yes.
Yeah, and if
Yes.
we encumber it, we can unencumber it if we don't.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so yes.
I have two. Mark?
Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, we're moving over to public comment. Step up to the podium, address the board president only. You may address one or more topics in the time allotted. Individual employees, parents, or children should not be identified by name, title, position, grade, or building. I'm going to ask. Well, we got that clock running. Let's bring it back to Drake. I'm going to ask that, please. I'm gonna shut it down in 3 minutes because it's been a long night. So we're gonna shut it down at 3 so people can be mindful. Look at the clock. When you see about 30 seconds left, kind of finish up the comment or question, please. Thank you. Go back to
There's
please.
a slight delay.
Okay.
Okay, again, I just want to say, kudos to the guidance director of high school, so grateful for it, it's a wonderful addition, can't say enough great things. I feel like it's definitely been a positive step in the right direction that was much needed and will help too. Everybody there, fantastic. Thank you also again to the board for bringing in everybody to explain the issue of EMS so that we feel confident and actually move forward. I think it's just something we're going to be dealing with, and I feel very confident that it will be handled appropriately. Two quick questions. To be solved the locked bathroom issue at the high school, the children can be able to use the bathroom, or they must take a passport and travel to the other side of the world when they're relaxing it. Last year, all the bathrooms kept getting locked because we needed somebody to monitor them. There are people monitoring them now that we could use them. All the bathrooms will be unlocked now. It won't be that there's one like on the top left floor.
I can't guarantee that all the bathrooms will be unlocked, but we have increased our staff to make sure that there is enough bathrooms.
Majority, okay. And while we're on bathrooms,
the first time in 20 years.
well, I'm gonna hold you to that, so.
I just want to mention too that when we did the walkthroughs, there was, I made a comment to Mr. Allen, how, the middle schools have their bathrooms that are open, with no doors.
Which is so inhumane in my opinion, I'm sorry. I think it's inhumane. I don't think that a young lady or a young man
Yeah, I
needs to
wasn't
use the
happy with
bathroom
that.
while the entire hallway, you know.
you don't
Listen
stay
in.
in school.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Young
You're in the
ladies-
hall,
I'm
you're
an open
doing
adult, I don't feel comfortable using that bathroom, so,
Yeah.
and not that, I mean, we all use the bathroom, but still, I think certain things should be private, we're not in a prison.
Right, so that's another issue that I just wanted to bring up, just because you reminded me of it so much.
Thank you for bringing that up, 'cause that's bothered me since my children started in this district, I think that's.
But they did fix the mirrors, so you can actually see yourself in the mirror now.
Oh, can you see some wire in the bathroom? Is that what? So the other issue also are the girls' bathrooms up at the high school. You need to either get real dryers in there or get some paper towels or something, because every time I've gone up there, and not that I'm a bathroom connoisseur, it just happened to come up because I was there this week. If you use the ladies' room, the dryers are literally, they have to be from like 1970, like I could blow my hands dry better. It's disgusting. And it's just unsanitary. You have the flu going around for the winter months, everyone's got colds, and quite honestly, it's just yucky. You should be able to wash your hands with soap and water and dry them efficiently. They have those wonderful dryers that will blow you back to when you were 16. If you stand in front of them now when you're in the wall or something, you're trying to dry yourself, and they're super strong, you know? So I feel like we could do a little something that might help, you know, with the germs scrubbing. So, and that's it, simple.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
Next. 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes.
I'll be quick.
2 minutes and 49 seconds.
The minutes from the last meeting, I happened to be reviewing them, and I just want to make one thing clear. On the public comment section, it said something about, I forget exactly how it read on the minutes, but my intention was not as it said, and I wish I would have
I'm
done
going
it.
to review the videotape and give Linda the actual wording so that we can fix those things. That's why I said hold time.
Okay, thank you. The other thing I happened to notice, I was reviewing some of the past meetings, and where your camera is, when those blowers are on, you can't hear anything that goes on up here. Just figured I'd mention that.
Meaning us
Thank you.
or?
Meeting the board, the meeting, anybody standing here, it's all Google.
It's all
Blowers
just
are on.
everything hold on.
You can't hear it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good to see.
The other thing that I wanted to address was a rumor that is out and about in the community, about a, director that could possibly be transferred.
And I have to ask you not to.
First of all, just a blanket statement, how can anybody run a department if they're
We
not?
can't say that. We're gonna discuss it, but we know,
As-
people can figure out who you're
as a
referring to.
taxpayer, I expect people to be able to work within their departments and not taken out of their environment where they have to do their job. That's what I'm paying taxes for, in order to pay their salaries. And, you know, if the person is not with their staff or within their environment where they have to run their business, that's not proper use of funds, my funds. More comments, most.
Yeah, we can't get into that, but thank you.
I've reached out to the board many times for my two children. I won't say their names. Many emails have been sent, stipulations have been sent on behalf of my children that's already denied. My children have dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia. I was given 5 hours of special intervention for my children for school year. They're below grade level. Their test scores, state scores above below grade level. They are in need of immediate intervention and help, and they're not being helped. I've had, it's horrendous at this point. This is my last attempt coming up to the board. They don't believe you're getting my emails because they don't believe board members will just ignore them. I believe somehow they're not getting to you. I don't know what else to do. But for a little boy who is getting 5 hours of an intervention specialist to work with him with dyslexia, with the money that we have in our budget, I am requesting to see the budget and spend down for the children. At this point, my other son has dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. He doesn't have teachers who are trained in those areas. So he does not have a math teacher who's trained in dyscalculia. He does not have teachers who are working with the dyslexia and who are trained in the dyslexia. They do have an intervention specialist coming, once again, for 5 hours for the whole school year. I sit at CSE meetings, I record them. I've gone on, I've reached out to the public, I've done everything. I'm watching my 2 children suffer. And I am a taxpayer, and there's no reason that these children should be suffering this way. The district wrote up a stipulation. I don't even believe at this point it was a real stipulation that was done for the board. I don't believe the board members ever saw it to go to a private school that's in Smith. That's one issue.
So, Madam Board President, you might want to have this mom talk with Linda, the superintendent.
I reached out to her. She doesn't respond.
Because, we might get into areas that involve litigation with the district, which is typically.
This right now, I'm really just discussing about the intervention specialist we have.
I'm gonna have to confirm my attorney, our attorney. You're getting into areas that we can't really speak about.
Okay, what about the intervention specialists that are on our school? Are teachers being trained in dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia? We're talking about all these other programs for our children who are getting suspended, but a lot of these things, our children are ending up in these kind of programs because they're not getting the proper schooling and intervention, and then they're falling short and going behavioral. I'm really here just for my 2 children at this point to understand which way I have to go. They're not getting the proper intervention as mandated by the state. And this isn't about litigation, this is about me as a taxpayer coming to the board. I've sent you probably over 100 emails. I don't believe that they would all be ignored. Something's going on. I want to know why we don't have a dyslexia, a dysgraphia specialist for my children, as the state says, and what's happening. There's not being proper intervention. It's beyond acceptable at this point.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Just want to confirm, clarify one thing, you're reading to church staffing, with Panico, Esther Bertucci, about the 3rd grade numbers. You would state there was one section of 23 and one section of 24.
It's actually 223 and 123. Thank you, that's what I was looking at. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? Okay, we're moving on to,
Hi, folks. In listening to the comment on the safety, some of the other non-public schools, we have had an issue with the past couple of weeks. And it's no surprise to me that we're having some trouble with busing. We came to contact the board, contacted the superintendent over the past 3 weeks even. And so to be apologizing for missing buses over this past week when this has been in the past, we tried to actually warn that these things would happen amongst other things. And so I've lost a lot of faith in the consultant that you have for the transportation. He was wrong about this week, and it's a bad launch for several non-public schools into their school year. So the apology rings hollow with respect to yesterday missing buses, today missing buses tomorrow, and so on, but they will step it over. With that said, my question would be, what else did we bring to the administration's attention and the board's attention that was not entirely right with regard to what the consultant was saying in terms of his recommendations? Number one, I'd like us to reevaluate having that consultant. Number two, I would like you to strike down his recommendation with respect to non-public schools busing. I would like you to reinstate the busing the way it was based on premature information. And on top of that, how do you let parents know mid-August of a major material change in busing for whichever the non-public school thing is? Once again, I've seen this all too many times. Major decisions are made in this district without involving the stakeholders. This is one. And the stakeholders actually came to meet with administration to explain all these things that, in our opinion, wasn't well thought out. And a lot of the problems that we experienced this week and will experience over the next couple of weeks until it all fleshes out could have been avoided if you involved the stakeholders, listened to us and alternatives. And in calling the state and in calling politicians myself, it turns out that it's not all truths that are being told. There are other ways we could have this problem solved if you would involve the stakeholders. Then maybe busing would have been proper for everyone. And it's not like this just happened a day or two ago. we have known about this for 3 weeks, and as soon as we got it 3 weeks ago, we were on you with all kinds of research and facts, except push to the side. And I was wondering, did you get the board get the email that we parents sent to the Board of Ed email address?
All right, so I know that we talked about this, and I understand that there were routes that were provided that would best serve all our students. So Linda, maybe you can get into a little bit of how these bus stops were rerouted so that the point would be at the high school so that it would service all our children.
No, with all due respect, the question was,
Yeah.
did you get the email?
Yes, I got the email, and what you were asking, you know,
That's what I was,
I
my
didn't get
first question was.
I didn't get it.
You took my 2 or 3 weeks
You
ago.
know what, you
We
know,
sent a detailed email to the board on Thursday.
On Thursday, I was there.
oh, this Thursday?
Yeah, we sent it to the Board of Ed email address.
Oh, and I didn't receive that. I
Okay,
didn't receive
that's my main question. And the other thing is, we contacted several politicians with respect to this anchor student law, and they sent a fax to.
All right, your 3 minutes are up, so I'm gonna have
Yeah.
Linda answer your question the best she
Okay, thank
can,
you.
because I know you're not the consultant. If you want it, okay, sorry.
Just one quick question, and I think Dr. Abdul knows this answer, because I was trying to look at myself. Are we required by New York State law to provide busing to students that are in non-public schools? Is that a requirement, or is that something that we do because we're generous?
It is a requirement up to 15 miles.
Up to 15 miles? Okay. And then after 15 miles, do we bus children more than 15 miles?
So we do, because there is an anchor child law, which is what Mr. Miro was just speaking about. Basically, what the district can do, and there's legalities to this, so I'm going to ask Mrs. Hutchinson to weigh in when I start to go off task and off track. If we have 25 students going to school, and 10 of them are within the 15-mile limit, they are entitled to door-to-door transportation or bus stop to school transportation, just like our children are to the high school or any other school. You can, as a school district, provide a centralized location for the remaining 15 students to come to that can then go to that private school. So there's 2 ways to provide that. You can say to the parents of those 15 students, get your children to that stop. Or you can, as long as there is no additional taxpayer cost, you can put those children on an already established route to the centralized pickup place. So when that was brought to our attention, we did not want to leave children without a way to get to a central pickup space, because we had been taking the students who were eligible within 50 miles and the students who were ineligible and giving them specialized routes to that school. We can't do that. That is a gift of public funds because it's an additional cost to the taxpayer. However, what the consultant did was reroute, or within the routes to the high school, added these kids who were over 15 miles and was bringing the high school to be the central pickup place. The reason that he wanted to do that was because there are routes home when those kids are getting home from their non-public school.
Okay, that makes sense. So that would actually be a cost-saving measure to the district?
Yes, it would not be just cost saving, it's not additional costs. So the original runs were additional costs.
Okay.
So these would be the after-school 3:15-ish kinds of runs for the kids to get from their non-public high school to the high school, which would allow those folks, those kids who were otherwise ineligible for transportation, to actually have transportation to an after-school bus.
So just so I'm saying it's clear, so what would happen is the child in the morning would go on a regular Connect Walk bus to high school?
Correct.
Okay. And then from the Connect Walk High School, they would be bused to their school of choice that they've chosen, correct? And then after their day, they would be bused back to the high school, and then bused home, much like a Connect student that we're paying the taxes for those buses.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so then that would be fair, because if
Just
we
not
did
the
it.
sports bus though.
Right.
Their late sports bus is later than our late sports bus.
Right, okay, so then transportation would be provided, we would have no gift of service,
Correct.
and that would be at no additional cost for the taxpayers.
That's correct.
Now, if we did it the other way, we had the central location, we do run the risk of now a parent now has to get the child to that central location. Right, so that could be a detriment. Like you said, there are children who might not be able to get there. And that is also an additional cost to the district.
No, because from that central location, you're allowed to get the bus from that central location. So part of the route of the eligible kids allows you to do that central location.
Right.
So we were trying to, when we moved into the high school so that kids could have busing to and from the high school on a regular day.
Okay.
Otherwise, if there was a central location at one of the middle schools per se, the parents would have to get there and get that child home, no matter what.
Right. So it just makes a no-brainer, it just seems like it's a safer option. They're actually brought to a bus stop closer to the house. So I'm just trying to understand it because I couldn't find a lot of information on this particular law. All right, thank you so much for that.
Linda, I just have one question on that. The central location before this was RMS, correct? So that everyone has this information on it. In the past, last year, we did it at RMS.
Correct.
So when I did the routing on Google Maps, it was 16.1 miles from the high school as our central location and 16.2 miles from RMS. So can you explain what the big deal was about moving it?
The major difference is that there's busing to and from the high school prior to the shuttle bus running. So if we left that location at RMS, there would be no transportation for the ineligible students to get to and from RMS on any given day. Their parents would have to get them to and from RMS every single day.
Thank you.
Why don't we reach out, I'm sorry, I'm just realizing, obviously, communication isn't being fully brought over to the board when we said something district-wide. How do we reach out to board members? And how do we get it? Because I sent you a packet. Did you get a package from Mrs. D'Ambrosio of some testings and a letter? Okay, yes, I'm sorry. I did leave a package that I did have it stamped in, and I'm obviously seeing that you might not have gotten that. How do I answer the question I'm trying to answer to
We've
ask?
had a district clerk in about 2 weeks, we're hoping to remedy that
No, this
problem.
was
in the next
it was
district.
further along, and it dropped off quite a few documents. How do I reach the board?
If you dropped off any documents, I'm not aware.
How do I email the board and reach them? Because I don't believe we're getting the emails.
That's the first thing you would use, but again, we don't have a district clerk.
So for all school of last year, all the emails I've sent,
I was on board last year.
well, so you're not getting the emails. Thank you. I just wanted to.
Karen wants to go down.
Nope, you don't have to say it. You can, but you don't have to.
All right, I did, so too late. All right, so I want to follow up on what Mr. Miro brought up about the busing. And understandably, we want to meet legal requirements and all of that, but there were two big issues that we had with the changes. One is the communication, because there really hasn't been adequate communication about exactly what the plan is, especially if you're not going to actually bus kids back to their home neighborhoods, and you're going to be taking them or dropping them at the high school, and the parents have to pick them up. There's been no communication about what happens when St. Anthony's has a half day. There's been no communication about what happens when Connect does not have school, but St. Anthony's does. You know, and some parents like myself have gotten this information by calling, but you know, there are many families involved in this, and I don't personally know all of them, and nor do I feel it's my responsibility to be the communication point to all of those families to let them know what's going on. Superintendent Adams was nice enough to meet with us, along with the transportation director, to discuss the issue. We asked for additional information to be sent to the parents, and we were told that that would happen. School starts tomorrow. We don't have the information. I didn't know until today when I called there was no busing tomorrow. You know, like that is really unacceptable, especially when it's a major change. We talked about the well-being of children. I don't feel that that has been considered adequately. My kids would be on the bus for an hour from leaving my house to them leaving the high school to get to St. Anthony's. You know, there are other ways that this could be accommodated that would not cost the school district anything. You know, in terms of having some
many parents would prefer to drop their children at the pickup point for that reason. You know, we want our kids to have a good start to the day too. And, you know, those are the kinds of things that should be discussed. We actually did send a letter to the board that we had actually 13 families involved in putting together. Those are the families that we know about anyway. And that's what we emailed.
Is that a Thursday letter?
Yeah, and have a copy if you'd like it. And what we like to ask is that this be reviewed to see if there are adjustments that can be made that would make it more manageable for students and families, you know, that have their kids going to see it.
Thank you. Going forward, I think we learned a little bit of lessons on that communication.
From Mount School. Anyone who lives in or near this district knows about the issues of the high school and backup and all that. And in fact, today, after school, I bumped into a teacher in the supermarket who was grumbling that, do you know how long it just took me to get out of that high school? The kids at home got stopped there. I said, oh, I know. It's been an issue for 100 years. That in and of itself, I lose confidence with this director whoever he is. I've just heard from neighbors and bus drivers a lot of crazy stuff in the recent past since this guy is on that. Really is unbelievable. I'm just telling you right here. So that all that stuff, coupled with the fact that so many parents now are unhappy about where this new program is, and the fact that now I believe that a lot of those private school parents are going to want to drive their kids just for the reason of the union. You know how cool all the kids can be, and they, you know, now we're going to put them on the bus with everybody else, and okay, so they have to endure or whatever. But so does everybody else now getting to the bus. We're getting more cars in and out. The kids, you know, having hardship of, let's face it, like I said, kids are cool. You know, the bus, you know, some kids are going to make comments. I don't know, something just, this doesn't make any sense to me. I don't believe this man researched enough or knew our district well enough to make some of the changes that he did. So I don't know. I don't know if he's an interim, I don't know if he stays, I don't know if he goes, but he's not making me very confident.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to schedule 1, resignation, terminations, leave absence. I need a motion in a second, then we can have a discussion if you want questions. So I'm going to do a motion. You're going to second my motion? Okay. Any question?
So, on the first, we're doing terminations, correct?
Correct.
There was a couple that were rescinded. Then I noticed on the appointments, they're hiring for the same thing. Can someone explain that?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So,
I'm sorry. So there were a couple on the terminations that were rescinded.
At the last board meeting?
No.
On this one?
Yeah, on this one. On this, it says rescinded. Specifically A, C, A and C. But then I noticed on Schedule 2 appointments, tenure and salary changes, those same positions are being filled by others. Can you, I think this is probably executive session, but, you know, why is that happening?
It probably is. I can give you a full explanation exactly.
So then I'd like to table the ones
Sure.
that were rescinded and then table until after discussion and then table the ones that were filled for the same thing.
Yep.
So you're tabling, okay, A and
C.
And then I don't know all of them that are on, the appointments. I'd have to look through, but it's the same, whatever that same position is.
Lisa, can we go into exec downstairs just to have this conversation?
Yeah.
And come right
I mean,
back?
that'd be great.
You can make a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of reviewing these particular personnel items,
And then come back.
and then come back. Yes.
Do you want to say it and we'll take a motion?
Yes. So there's a motion to move into executive session for the purposes of reviewing particular personnel and employment matters on the agenda.
All motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna go back to, we're going back to consent agenda. We're going to vote on items 1 through 19. We're going to take, I'm sorry, items 1 through 18. We're gonna table 19. Items 20 through 30 are going to be a resolution for 3 months on the items of facilities use.
So we're allowed.
Allow you to use the
We're
field.
going to do a resolution to allow them to use it for the 3 months. We're going to revisit and we're going to adjust policy so that the policy can be more specific to the different entities. So in the meantime, let me take a vote on items. We took a motion in a second. I just need all in favor of items 2 through 18. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Okay, we're going to 19, which we're tabling. Okay, we're going to go to items 20 through 30 for the resolution. And taking a motion in a second for the resolution
As
for 3
amended.
months.
As amended.
As amended.
Motion? We're doing it 3 months or policy.
Policy revised.
Okay.
Policy revised.
Which means you're covering that, you don't have to get a Bible.
You're fine.
Okay. Lee, are you a yay on that? All in favor? Yay?
Yes, that part.
Okay, so let's go revisit back to public
Can you
comment.
get a motion in a second for that?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank
All in
you.
favor?
Aye.
Okay, anybody else on public comment?
Yeah, just one more thing. I would like this board to really deeply look into the background of this gifting of public funds. As it was explained to me, the idea of gifting of public funds has to do with exchanging. You can trophies or money, services or this or that when it comes to services for students. That skirts right on the line of what gifting of public funds. So I would like you to really dig deep into whether or not we're talking about an interpretation here that if you guys should look into it.
Oh, no,
I just
who
looked into
told you
it.
this? Was it
Well, my own research, my speaking with a person who's a lawyer, and like that. So I would like the board to look into strongly the idea of gifting of public funds as it pertains to this specific situation, because I don't understand. And also, I'd like to know what's the cost savings.
What situation you're not being?
The
busing?
continuation of the busing.
Oh.
Because I think what we're talking about, the money savings that, to restore that bus route, are we talking like hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars? What cost saving, when the analysis was done?
So can I
savings
just
of that-
interrupt really quick, and I'm sorry. So the law only allows you to do door-to-door transportation for certain circumstances. So if you live beyond 15 miles from a private school, you're not entitled to door-to-door transportation, and the Board of Education can't approve it unless there is voter approval for that. So unless there's been voter approval, it's not an issue of gift of public funds, it's an issue.
What I learned from the state when I called them and.
It's an issue of what the law states, so it's really not an issue of public funds. It's an issue of the authority of the board to allow it to happen. Because if there hasn't been voter approval to extend the transportation mileage, you're not entitled to it at 15 miles.
36, 35, 35, 36, it does say the board has prerogative to weigh in on it and make determinations. It says in the
With
law.
voter approval. Voter
That voter
approval.
approval is mentioned elsewhere in the law.
But
Not
for
tied-
extension
not tied
of
to
the 15-mile limit, it has to be a voter
Because they
approval.
call that gas from running around the district as contingency costs.
I hear what you're saying, so it's statutory, meaning that it is the law, so it doesn't, like, there's really not a debate,
because the law just says what it says.
So I'm just addressing the president of the board. I'm asking the board to look strongly into this. I didn't want to get into a debate with the lawyer about this. I'm asking you guys to strongly look into this on the issue of giving public funds, how true it is, and whether or not we're talking about an interpretation here that can be done in favor of the kids so they start their school day right. I think that there's other ways we can set the route up. I think that route should be restored simply because we were let known mid-August with no discussion. People are scrambling to figure out what they're going to do. From sports in the morning, sports in the afternoon, whether you figure out your lessons, what times, there's a lot that goes into this. And I think that the April 1st deadline to let the district know that we intend to use the busing system or not. But also there's voting that goes on in May. So now we let the district know that we want busing. We vote a certain way in May based on the idea that busing hasn't changed and it's in the line item of the budget as we thought. We shouldn't expect anything to change. And then in mid-August, when everyone's fleeing for vacation, finished, so no discussion can take place. We're just stuck with what's sent our way. Listen, when I went to speak to the lawyers and the politicians, they all recognize that Ralphie Bison, that's some kind of play that was run against you guys. There's something else going on. I'd like this board to look into what else is going on. It doesn't have to be this way. How else could it be? And in the email that I gave you guys, I gave you a couple of suggestions. So, I give my time.
Thank you.
Is that, can I ask a question, is that, what he's saying, is that something that they can petition the board to run about? Give up?
I think you just explain what's gonna happen after the 3 months when you revisit more specifics.
Policy committee is going to meet and they're going to redefine some of the criteria for building usage and facilities
So
usage.
in 3 months.
So currently now,
Being able to use
it's,
or,
no, you can. For the 3 months you can.
no, I mean after the 3 months.
Is, I think in your particular case, I think, if I'm correct, Sharon, you did prove all 3 criteria?
Yes.
You did, so, I mean, I don't think we're gonna change specifically that term, which is proven over 60% of community, having a 501c, having the insurance. So, you're fine with that.
So it's safe for me to go back and say
Right.
that
Right.
collected tuition. because
Yes.
We all paid the tuition
Yes.
for the 11 months.
Mhm.
Where do we do it? It's when we told you.
I'm actually looking at the spreadsheet and I see that, I don't see the roster or the not-for-profit organization status on the Connect What Swim Club. It says no for roster and no for nonprofit.
There's an agenda item for this one.
What is the name of the, is it under Connect What Swim, is it Quad? Is Connect What Swimming and Diving, that's the 501c3, that's reported under.
29?
So there's 2 different swim clubs.
Open water swim. Well, that's not.
Open Water Swim is not you guys, it's the other one.
23 is the one I was thinking.
What's
Oh, that's right.
Number 23. Yeah, which is.
29 is different.
Yeah, 29 is different.
So wait a minute, how many people are using the pool?
23 is the Connect What swim team. And they have all of the 3 requirements. They recently amended their roster and now they show 60% district residents. And they did August 29th, but August 30th, they submitted an amended one. So number 23, Connect What swim team has all of the 3 criteria.
Not 29.
Okay, so then
Not
they,
29. So
Okay.
they have to be included in that 3 months.
You're included in that 3-month moratorium right now.
They wouldn't be though. if they-
No, they're
They
not.
met all 3.
They met all 3.
And they're following the policy.
Yeah, they're
Plus
following
the other
policy.
ones, they met on 3 also.
Right.
We're only giving them 3 months.
We're giving everyone 3 months. Yeah.
But we gave the last 4 meetings, anyone who met all 3 criteria of
of the actual policy, we gave them a year.
But we're also, we didn't define the not-for-profit, is what Lisa said, so we have to define that.
It's different than what you did last board meeting, so I'm pointing out.
Yes.
Last board meeting, everyone who had all three of those check boxes, which
Right,
is
but
part
the
of the policy.
not-for-profit thing was not defined, so they may meet that criteria now where they didn't meet it before, depending on how we define it in the policy, depending on the law says we can define it. That's what we were talking about.
So you're saying the people, they checked 3 boxes?
They checked all 3 boxes.
Okay,
Policy.
then-
I mean, if they check all
Okay,
the
that's
boxes,
fine.
that's not gonna change.
Right, that's not
So I
changing.
would say that you don't want to have number 23, number 23 should be fully approved, and the other ones would be conditionally approved.
Yes, if you checked, if they checked all 3
If they
boxes,
checked all
that's
3
correct.
boxes, that's just not.
That's correct.
Okay, so then we
No,
we
no,
need
she's
to.
not 29. She's 23.
We need to go back then, because
We voted on those, did we not? Well, we make it 3 months and then just I mean, we could just approve that again the next time. Like, don't go back now. It's got 3 months and then they just got
it's
them all.
up to
It
you.
doesn't really
I'm
matter.
just, it's different, it's not a conditional approval, because it's all
Right,
three of the
right.
policies.
So the conditional approval.
More comfortable that they know that they have a whole year versus 3 months and then.
But if you checked all the boxes, then that's not.
Yeah, but you know what, does it make a difference if you,
No, you can go back and you
I just
can.
go back and look
Okay.
Change item number 23.
All right, so we're going back into item 23 to exclude from the resolution amendment of 3 months. We're going to include it as
An annual
annual appointment.
approval.
Right,
An annual
approval.
approval.
I'll take a second. All in favor? Okay. So now you're included in the year. Okay, anybody else? Public comment?
I just like to ask the board, now that, you have the letter, you don't mind sharing that. With,
We're going to be getting the email.
yeah, and,
You're gonna forward that to us?
I would just like to ask if, we can talk about when we might be able to follow up on that conversation.
You want to put that on for the next agenda, Linda?
I didn't have a chance to read it, so
Yeah.
I didn't have a chance to read it yet.
Okay, we didn't receive it yet, and I can't digest here and
That is fine, but I would like to just discuss when, follow up after that. If that's an agenda for next summer, fine.
later on next time. We should get more information on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That means you have to come back and see us.
We do.
Anybody else? Public comment? Going once, going twice. Okay. We're going to be moving into executive session. Taking a motion to move into executive session in accordance with Open Meetings Law, Section 105F, employment history matters leading to the discipline removal of a particular person's confidential and exempt under the meetings law to seek the advice of the board's attorney. With the motion in second. All in favor?